Welcome to Films from the Phantom Zone, your podcast about failed and forgotten comic book movies, where we watch a forgotten superhero movie and decide, does this belong in the Phantom Zone, or out and about for everyone to rewatch and remember fondly. My name is Arnaldo, I'm your host, and I'm joined
by Berto, co-host.
So, we said last week we were going to do the movie Steel, but we kind of decided to put that one on the back burner. So I have a friend who's going to be a guest on it. So we're just kind of trying to figure out the logistics of that. So instead, Berto, what movie are we doing this week?
Instead, this week we are doing Cowboys and Aliens from 2011.
Yeah. Starring Daniel Craig, Harrison Ford, Olivia Wilde, directed by Jon Favreau.
Who a lot of people know as the director of Iron Man, the creator of The Mandalorian.
Yeah.
The director of Chef.
The Chef show on Netflix, which is really good.
That's a very good show. I love that show.
I haven't seen Chef, though. God, that one's always like on the back burner for me. I'm like, one of these days I need to watch that.
It's so good.
It looks really good, and I'm a big fan of Chef Show, and they always like use clips from that. Because Chef Show is, if you don't know, it's a show on Netflix, and it's just like Jon Favreau and his buddy who's a chef. It's the guy who they hired as like the consulting chef for the movie Chef.
Yeah.
And they just kind of go around and they cook. You know, they have guests on that Jon Favreau works with, like people in the movie industry.
Yeah, they have Tom Holland in there.
Tom Holland. I think RDJ was on there.
Yeah.
They went to Skywalker Ranch and
Dave Filoni.
Dave Filoni was on there. So it's really interesting because if you're into movie stuff and then you're also into like food,
yeah,
which a lot of people are because like cooking shows are so popular. That's like a weird mixture that's like right up your alley. Then that's a really good show.
And they make some really good looking food.
I've written down some of those recipes because they don't provide those recipes, and there's no like measurements because like Roy Choi is one of those chefs who just kind of like cooks by feeling,
right?
Which I mean, I guess a lot of them are. So they don't like write anything down. So I'm like kind of trying to fill in the blanks,
get the ingredients, and like just kind of make it to taste.
And I can cook pretty well, so I'm like, you know, as long as I see him do it, I can pretty much like remember, write down, or like experiment myself. But good show. Anyway, that guy, Jon Favreau, is the point. So this is a movie that kind of flew under the radar, even though it had a big marketing push. I don't recall people talking about it a lot. I remember seeing a lot of trailers and stuff.
Yeah, like there was the trailers and it just kind of came out and just kind of fizzled away.
Yeah. So this is based on a comic book, obviously, or else we wouldn't allow ourselves to be watching it.
Yeah, we don't ever watch any movies that aren't based on comic books ever.
It's pretty much our lives, honestly. It's pretty much taken over. You know, we joke around, but sometimes I'm like, I need to watch more just like regular movies. Because apart from like rewatching, you know, the MCU and stuff, and then stuff for this podcast, and then it's like, oh, I want to watch Star Wars again, or Harry Potter, or some other thing. And I'm like, when do I have time to watch
like,
I
don't have time to watch a regular movie right now. I have to watch this.
Yeah, so like I'm watching this movie that we're going to be talking about, Cowboys and Aliens, and it's supposed to like harken back to a lot of like Westerns. And I'm like, I should probably like actually turn this off and watch like an actual Western for a change. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But sure, let's get right into it. So Cowboys and Aliens, 2011. So based on a comic book called Cowboys and Aliens. And just to kind of get the obvious thing out of the way, this is a play off of the term Cowboys and Indians.
Yeah.
And the whole movie, I mean, we're going to get into it. It's kind of, it's not a satire, but it is like this mini, not like, don't take it too seriously either, but like allegory for like, you know, white people invading basically the West in search for gold. And during the gold rush of like the, you know, the late 19th century, early 20th century, and basically like going to war over with American Indian tribes over that, right?
Except this time it's the white people getting attacked.
By aliens. Yeah. So that is the general premise of the movie. But the comic book itself is not really superhero-y. It's just like, because it's about aliens, I'm like, it counts. You know what I mean?
It's fantastical enough.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's almost like, is Guardians of the Galaxy, like, are they superheroes? They're all kind of like normal people of their kind of, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, they're not out doing good for good's sake. It's just kind of like, it falls within the genre anyway.
Yeah, it's not like it's an Archie comic or something like that, you know?
Apparently, we were looking up the comic book, and it was from 2006, I think. I don't have it right in front of me.
Yeah.
They did some shady shit. They like inflated the number of sales that they did, which convinced Universal to like make this movie.
Yeah.
Because like they sold at a low price and they sold the comic in books. So it made it look like a top seller, even though like comic book shops then couldn't necessarily flip that inventory.
Yeah, a lot of it probably sat on shelves.
Yeah. So kind of a weird way to get a movie made.
It worked.
It makes me feel like, is it that hard to get a movie made? I feel like I could trick someone into buying my book and making a movie on it and giving me millions of dollars and having Harrison Ford in it, right? Like,
it might be a little bit harder than that now.
yeah, probably. Yeah, so this movie is available on
Peacock.
It's on Peacock, so the NBC streaming service. Yeah, it's not really anywhere else. And Peacock is...
They tend to have a lot of Universal movies on there.
NBC Universal, yeah.
Yeah.
They merged in like 2000-something. And there are time codes in the description. So we're going to jump around. We usually do our initial expectations, the plot, analysis, keep or cancel, which we'll be talking about just Daniel Craig and Harrison Ford. Olivia Wilde,
maybe.
Jon Favreau,
yeah, because he was like mentioned briefly in Daredevil.
Oh, yeah. You know what? In Daredevil, we said we would talk about him in Cowboys and Aliens.
Did we?
I think we did. I don't think we talked about him. Well, yes, we did. We did 4 people.
What about Noah Ringer, the kid that ruined Avatar?
I wanted to talk about him for a minute, actually. But so that'll be keep or cancel. And then we decide if this movie belongs in the Phantom Zone or not. Also, before we get started, we are live on Twitch. If you like the show, if you want to be a part of it, go on Twitch on most Monday nights. You can talk to us in the chat.
Yeah.
Cool. So let's just get into it. Are you ready?
Yeah, let's go.
Okay, so initial expectations. What were yours?
I had originally seen this in theaters when it came out.
Oh, you've seen this movie before?
Yeah, I was relatively young. So, I mean, I was just like, all right, this seems like
This was 10 years ago.
Yeah, I was 17.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that makes sense.
So I was just like, all right, this will be a fun movie to watch. And I remember just thinking it was fine, and then that was it. I had never seen it again. So this time going into it, I was kind of just expecting more of the same. Like, it's a fine movie. I'm not going to hate it. So
yeah, for me, I think it's like one of those movies where I remember the trailer so well, like vividly, and it doesn't seem like it was 10 years ago. It seems like it was just kind of the other day. Is this one, when you procrastinate something so much that like you realize it's like, oh shit, that was like months ago that I said I was gonna do that thing,
and you still haven't done it.
You still haven't done it. It's like that where I'm like, oh, one of these days I'm gonna watch that movie. It looks interesting because the trailers were pretty good.
Yeah,
and we just rewatched the trailer. We were just like eating dinner, and I put on the trailer just to kind of like see it. Yeah, like it sells the movie pretty well. I feel it just kind of
it doesn't really give anything away, and it's intriguing.
Yeah. It's Cowboys and Aliens. It's exactly what it says. It is, right? I don't know. I never saw it, and I feel like I've always wanted to see it. So I'm glad that we picked it. And then I saw Roberta Orsi and Alex Kurtzman's name on it.
And you're like, shit.
And I was like, God damn it. If there's one fucking secret society in this, I'm going to lose it. And we did them for Keep or Cancel back in Zorro, right? Legend of Zorro?
The
second Zorro movie, because they wrote that movie. Or they took a pass at it. Because that's what happens in most of these guys' career. They are given scripts that like studios don't want to like pull the trigger on yet. And they're like, all right, these guys know how to make a movie that makes a lot of money and is popular with like the kids, like the millennials at the time. We're older now. But like at the time, they were doing like Transformers movies and they did Star Trek movies.
Yeah.
And so they're like, give these guys a pass. They'll put like all these little exciting moments, reach the kids. And then, we'll make a lot of money. But really, all they do is make a movie look kind of flashy. But like, they're more like flash over substance is what we said.
Yeah.
Remember?
Visually, they can do some pretty cool stuff. But that's really about it, usually.
Yeah. They can write a hell of a trailer, probably.
Oh, yeah. They can make you want to see a movie.
Yeah. And when their names came up, I was like, oh, no, not this. I had zero expectations going in, so cool. Let's get into the plot. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, so our hero, Daniel Craig, by the way, he just doesn't have a name. So our hero, Daniel Craig, wakes up in the desert with a wound and a futuristic shackle bracelet on that he can't remove. He's confronted by 3 cowboys looking for scalps and bounties, but makes short work of them, revealing some impressive fighting skills. He takes their clothes, a horse, and their dog follows him as well. So I really like this type of show don't tell storytelling.
Okay, yeah.
You know what I mean? Because there's very few like words spoken in the first 15 minutes of the movie.
Yeah.
after this short fight, like the credits roll and he just slowly rides into town.
This feels very like Western.
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah. And it doesn't feel like, I'm going to compare this to like a Marvel movie because like, you know how like every Marvel movie we talked about this, at some level feels like they're the same.
There is a formula.
There's a formula, or at least like you get like a genre and they give it a Marvel treatment, you know, and one of them is like a pace, you know, and this is not like that. Like it feels like you said, like it feels like a Western.
Yeah. You're kind of thrown into it. You're not quite sure what's going on yet.
Yeah.
Like, just like the main character.
Exactly.
You're like, what the hell is that in his hand? The little bracelet.
Yeah.
And he's looking at it. He's like, what the hell is this thing? He's trying to like get it off. And
right.
You're asking questions, but like in a good way.
Yeah. It's a show don't tell. Like we don't know. Like we're being shown exactly what he's being shown, you know? I think this movie's rated PG-13 is what I would probably rate it. It must be. There's no way.
I think it is. Yeah.
You know what I mean? But it does feel kind of gruesome in a way of like what like a gritty Western would feel. And part of that is like when you see the scalps.
Yeah, they're like still bloodied. There's flies like flying around them and stuff.
Yeah, they're all like long-haired scalps, so they've been like hunting Indians.
Yes.
You know?
As they did.
Right. But it's, you know what I'm saying, is that they're not going to breeze over it.
No.
Riding into town, he's met by the town's preacher, who stitches him up and remarks on the strangeness of his wound, saying it's cauterized and not from a gun. They're interrupted by gunshots outside by a drunk Paul Dano. There's so many fucking characters in this that are not worth naming. It's the actor Paul Dano. Like, that's all you gotta know.
His character's name is Percy.
It is, yeah, you're right. It is Percy. He's the rich cattle farmer's son and is given special treatment by the town. In turn, he abuses the town and the bartender Doc, who is also the town doctor. Daniel Craig Cowboy, again, we don't know his name yet, so Daniel Craig, stands up to him as the sheriff arrives, who arrests him reluctantly. Because he's like the rich man's kid.
Yeah.
Right?
Like he's drunk, he's fooling around, ends up accidentally shooting a deputy.
Yeah.
But he didn't shoot the sheriff.
That's funny. That's the opposite of the song.
Yeah.
This was the doc, the bartender, Sam Rockwell.
Yes.
He's fantastic.
He does a wonderful job.
Yeah, he's fantastic. This is an all-star cast, which we're going to get into. And it's kind of the main selling point of this movie is like, hey, look at all these of your favorite actors that are like being put together. There is something about Paul Dano that I do not like him.
Like the actor?
Yeah, I think it's just his face. You know, he has like a really weird looking kind of face.
He's got kind of a punchable looking face.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
It doesn't help that he plays like a little shit in this movie.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of like his characters in other movies, but I really can't.
Like when Daniel Craig knees him in the dick.
Yeah.
It's honestly kind of satisfying.
For sure. So Daniel Craig goes into a saloon where he's approached by Olivia Wilde's character named Ella, who recognizes his bracelet and assumes he also lost his memory. The sheriff arrives after seeing a wanted poster with his face on it. He is apparently Jake Lonergan, a notorious bandit. He fights the deputies, but is knocked out and taken to the jail, where the sheriff shows him his wanted poster and tells him of the crimes he's wanted for, one being the murder of a prostitute he has vague memories of. So, I guess his wife was a prostitute? Or... I feel like there's an assumption that all these women are prostitutes too.
Yeah, they make the assumption that like because when Ella walks up to him in the bar, he goes, "No, I'm just here to drink."
Yeah.
Like dismissing her.
I mean, there is like some legitimacy there because like if you look at the history of saloons, they were incredibly problematic. Like saloons ruined a lot of towns because it was a place where only dudes were basically allowed in and they would just get drunk and like ruin everything. And
start shooting each other.
Yeah, it was
buildings.
Yeah, saloons were like a serious problem. Like saloons helped convince people of like the temperance movement of like abolishing alcohol because there was such a like this connection to like just alcohol to like extremely drunken behavior in saloons by men.
Yeah.
Like, because of that connection, a lot of women stop drinking because they're like, this is like what violent men do when they are like drunk and discussing. And so if you went in a saloon, you probably didn't see women unless they were there to like prostitute themselves.
True.
So there is legitimacy there. I'm just saying it's probably a coincidence, but I don't know. It also seems like, what's his face? Jon Favreau is a big fan of Westerns.
Yeah.
So that might be a detail that like he's aware of too. But I don't know. It could also be a sexist joke for all we know.
No, that's true too. It was 2011.
Yeah.
Which does not feel like it was that long ago.
It
Fuck.
really doesn't when you think about it. Again, I feel like I just saw the trailers to this movie a few years ago. Also, the drawing on the Warner poster isn't very good because it took me a second to be like, is that Daniel Craig? Do you have the right guy?
Also, in that scene when they rip off the poster, underneath for like a second, you see a picture of Jon Favreau.
Oh, like he's on the next poster?
Yeah.
That's a fun little Easter egg. Meanwhile, Harrison Ford's character, Colonel Dollarhide, who is the cattle farmer, so Percy's dad,
Yes.
is investigating one of his ranchers who lost some cattle to a mysterious bright light. He's told that his son has been arrested along with Jake Lonergan. He rolls into town with his posse and demands the sheriff give him Jake, who apparently robbed him of his gold. At this moment, bright lights appear on the horizon and Jake's bracelet lights up and starts beeping. The lights are planes that start firing down on the town and grappling up villagers. The bracelet expands and Jake discovers it's a futuristic weapon and shoots his way out of the carriage. He then shoots down a plane.
He also broke Percy's arm.
Yeah, they were shackled together, and he's like, "Come here, I'm gonna get us out of this." I was like, "Okay," and he just like breaks his hand and slides the shackle off, and he's just like screaming.
It was funny.
There's some funny bits in this actually.
Yeah. And this scene where the town's being attacked by the aliens is actually like really good. It's so like chaotic and it's like, what the hell's going on? And like the build up to it's good too, because like you see the spacecraft like flying toward them and they like disappear for a second. And then like everyone's like, what the hell? And then they just appear again and start shooting down on them. And literally just like grabbing people.
So part of the premise of this movie is like you're familiar with alien movies. You've seen a million of them. Those are all set in present day. But what if aliens came like 100 years ago?
Yeah.
Then what? You know, like, is it over? Like, because we don't have like missiles and planes or cars or that much electricity. Like,
we have our fucking 6-shooters.
Yeah. They got a couple rifles and they have some, dynamite. So, and like horse-drawn carriages and bows and arrows and tomahawks we see later. So that in and of itself is a super interesting premise. And I think all around, like, Cowboys and Aliens, like, is a great premise for...
And when this was happening, I didn't get, like, pulled out of the movie or anything thinking, like, wow, this is ridiculous. I was like, I believed that was happening to them.
What if the movie wasn't called Cowboys and Aliens? What if it was called something else and you didn't see the trailer and you're just sitting in this and then fucking aliens appear?
I don't know.
Would you like it more?
I mean, I would. Unless I thought I was watching like a legitimate like Western drama or something.
Yeah. It's like up to this point, it's like straight up Western. Like that's the tone of the movie.
And it's not a bad Western.
No, it's fine. Like it's good. It's a good first act for like a Western movie.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's got all the elements. Oh, yeah. That's the one part. That's like the one element that you're like, all right, what's going on here? But I think if I saw that, I'd stand up and clap. Like if I went to go see a Western and then fucking aliens show up, I'm like, okay, this is a huge swing. But like, is it a hit or is it a miss? You know what I mean? But I'd applaud it just for taking the swing.
Right.
Like, this is fucking Babe Ruth, like, pointing at the outfield. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This is it. I'm going to knock it out. So, part of me is, I'm like, this movie has to be called Cowboys and Aliens. Because if it's not, people would leave the theater, I think. You know what I mean? Like, normal people aren't ready for this kind of, like, bait and switch. They would call it a bait and switch. I'd call it a happy surprise. Like, a subversion of expectations is what I would call that.
Yeah, like, what if the movie was just called, like...
Just like something out west or
True Grit 2.
Yeah. True Grit Part 2. Aliens show up. And to your point, like, no, the action sequences in this are really good. It gets a little towards the end. We're going to get there. It gets a little samey towards the end.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I'm like, this is...
It's solid.
And it's very well shot. It's almost like... Because this is Jon Favreau, who, like, has, at this point, had just shot 2 Iron Man movies.
Yeah. This was, like, right after Iron Man 2.
Yeah. And those movies, say what you will, like, we disagree a lot about Iron Man 2. Great action. Like, all the Marvel.
I don't like that movie.
Okay, but great action.
Good action,
right?
though.
And I think it's better action than Iron Man 3. That's a whole another conversation. But he obviously knows where to put the camera and what to do. And he's incredibly competent.
Make sure you know what's going on during the action.
Yeah. Some of this that I really like here is that we don't see an alien for like another half hour after this scene. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It is so from the perspective of like the victims of this attack that all you see is lights. There are some nice like classic alien tropes in it, like there's beams.
Yeah.
And then there's like the grapples. Like that's a little bit of like it's almost like a little bit of cowboy visual language. You know what I mean?
They're getting like wrangled.
Yeah, they're like
Yeah.
roping up like cattle basically.
Yeah.
Which is like a fucking sport. Later on, because when I saw it, I was like, oh, they got grappled up. Like that's how I interpret it. And then one of the characters is like, oh yeah, they roped up all our people. And I'm like, oh, that is what they did. Like
It is what
they're like literally being cowboys to the cowboys, you know?
which is kind of great.
No, that's a fun little like thing. It's a fun little metaphor. And a little visual gag, I think.
And we get a little bit of an almost glimpse at an alien. You hear like one attacking somebody inside of like a building.
You see a shadow.
You see like blood splatter on the window, and then the alien runs away.
Yeah, it's intriguing. To me, that's how you do an alien movie. You know what I mean? You shroud it mostly in mystery until like later on because it's scarier that way.
There's some
right?
stuff that reminded me of like Predator in here.
Yeah, oh, for sure. Or like Alien, or like just you list all your favorite or at least best executed alien movies.
Close Encounters.
Close Encounters. I mean, you like never see the aliens in that movie, do you?
I don't think you ever really do. It's more of just like
It's such a mystery. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like you feel the presence of them the whole time.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Independence Day, also, which I'm going to compare it to in a little bit, which is arguably not a good movie, but I like it a lot.
It has an incredible speech in it.
Yeah. Jake and Dollarhide, again, so Jake is Daniel Craig, and Dollarhide his name is like Colonel Woodrow Dollarhide.
Yeah, he was like a colonel in the war.
Presumably the Civil War.
Yeah.
But also, I think the Mexican-American War was fought around this time too, out west.
What was this, 1870
something?
Okay. Also, Dollarhide, what a fucking name.
Oh, yeah, and that's Harrison Ford. So Jake and Dollarhide investigate the plane before hearing a scream and witnessing the shadow of a creature who runs off.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Dollarhide tries to recruit Jake, saying he owes him, but Jake refuses and leaves town in the morning, followed by Ella, who says the creatures took her people and wants his help to find them. He refuses and rides off. She joins the town in their search for the aliens. So for me, there's a lot of like repeating plot points going on to the point where it feels like filler. So you're going to see a lot of Ella going to Jake being like, you have to help me.
And Jake's like, okay.
And he's like, no, what do you want? And then like they get interrupted. And then there's a lot of Dollarhide is like, you got to help us. And Jake says no. And he just leaves. There's a lot of that going on. And then he just comes back like two scenes later.
But then they all come back together anyway. Yeah.
So it's almost like they're like, all right, we got to fill for time. It's like padded.
It's like, help me. No. And then like, okay, I'll help you.
Yeah. So what have we been doing for the last 5 minutes? Nothing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And again, Orsi and Kurtzman, a lot of times, like, they write a lot of really good moments to the point where by the end of the movie, you're like, wow, that movie was really good. And then like 5 minutes later, you think about it. And then like an hour later, you're like, what? Wait a second. Like, that's not.
That's what we were saying with Zorro, because we had like that really good moment with like his son and him. Remember with the
I already forgot that whole movie.
The whole speaking Spanish part.
Oh yeah,
Like,
that was
that's
a good
really
little
cool.
bit.
It doesn't make sense in context, but it's good.
Yeah, you needed to workshop that a little bit more. Jake arrives to his old home, where in a flashback we see him returning to his wife with stolen gold. When suddenly the gold melts and is beamed up through the roof. He and his wife are abducted, and we see flashes of them on board the alien ship. So I'm not a huge fan of this little section here because we were doing really good with this like Western feel. And then you get kind of like spoon-fed this flashback. You know what I mean?
This flashback would have worked in a later scene.
Maybe. Yeah. I could agree with that.
It would have worked a lot better in a later scene, and I think you know what scene I'm talking about.
Remind me when we get there.
Okay.
Because he has like 2 more flashbacks. So like maybe somewhere in there.
Yeah.
But it does feel like, you know, instead of having a little bit more mystery, you just kind of like...
Oh, he got abducted by aliens. That's what happened. They just took him.
Yeah. So Jake returns, and then he just goes back. So like, what was the point? You know what I mean? It's like we were just saying. It's like a little bit of filler where he just goes in one direction. He's like, actually, I'm back.
It was a subplot.
Okay. Jake returns to meet up with Dollarhide and the rest of the town's posse. They ride until they find a riverboat upside down and nowhere near a river. They camp here. Dollarhide bonds with the little boy, Aang, and gives him a knife.
You mean Ong?
Ong. Yeah, I don't remember his name. It doesn't matter. He's the little boy in the movie. I'll just keep calling him Aang.
Noah Ringer.
Yeah. The preacher teaches the doc how to shoot, and Ella tries to help Jake remember his life. His bracelet starts beeping, signaling the aliens are nearby. So, to me, there's a little bit of unnecessary sexual tension here for characters that I don't believe are going to end up together. She's like, we don't know anything about her. We just know that she's tried talking to him twice now, and he refuses to.
And he's like, go away.
Yeah, exactly. And then now he's like shirtless, obviously.
Had the nudity.
You got to do it. And she walks in, and he's looking at his wound. She's like, oh, I can help you with your wounds. And so she's like lightly touching his chest.
And he's like, what are you doing?
It's a trope that you see in a million movies.
Yeah.
And it's completely unironic. Like, this is what they put in the movie. But you haven't given these characters any dialogue yet, basically. They've just said the same things back and forth to each other, like, please help me. And he's like, stop talking to me. Back and forth and back and forth, back and forth. And now we're supposed to believe that, like, they're attracted to each other.
She is very beautiful.
I mean, obviously they're both attractive people, but that's not enough story-wise, right? I don't know. And then Daniel Craig, he's had like 4 lines up to this part. And it was charming at first, but now I'm like,
you gonna talk?
Yeah, like, are you the character here? Are you the protagonist? Like,
Are we supposed to like insert ourselves into?
Is this like a game of Zelda? where, like Link like famously doesn't talk. It's assumed that he's speaking to people, but like we don't see it.
Honestly, I think they should just make him talk by this point. If it's to the point where other characters are actually speaking, like with voices and everything, and Link just goes, ugh.
Yeah. Well, they haven't done that yet. They still use like text boxes
a little bit.
Oh, there's the cutaway scenes. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Anyway, what do you think about some of these little scenes here? Like Aang.
I like them.
The preacher and the doc.
Yeah. Like, I like that these characters are getting to know each other, and we're also getting to know them a little bit.
Yeah.
It feels like a classic Western thing as well, though. Like, they're going out on they're going out on like this journey together.
Right.
And they're kind of bonding along the way because, like, who else is around,
Yeah.
And I like stuff like that.
I really like most of these characters.
Yeah.
The preacher is played by Clancy Brown.
Mr. Krabs.
Yeah, Mr. Krabs. And also a million other things. The guy's got a huge filmography, and we talked about him in...
LXG?
No. He was in Elektra.
Was he?
Was he not?
Was it Elektra he was in? I know we talked about him. I just don't remember in what.
Anyway, he's great. Sam Rockwell is great. I love those characters.
Yes.
Even, I'm going to give him credit, Little Boy Aang.
No, he's not bad in this movie
at all.
He
was
was
pretty good.
Terrible in Avatar, though.
Yeah, sure. But he's not bad in this. And I liked his little moments with Harrison Ford.
Yeah.
Before the aliens showed up, I thought Harrison Ford was going to be the villain. Because that's what the first act paints him out to be.
Yeah, like his son's this little piece of shit. He's going to come to the town, fuck everything up.
And he's like mean.
Yeah.
He's like torturing that guy because like his cattle are dead because the aliens killed him.
Who goes around blowing up people's cows? That's what he said.
Yeah. Yeah, so I was just expecting him to be the bad guy. I'm like, oh, this is going to be interesting.
And it's like, no, he's actually like this kind of nice guy.
Yeah, he's just kind of like rough around the edges. But has he ever been a villain before? Like in any way,
like full on villain?
Yeah, like I
don't
think there's filmography. I'm like, oh, he's always the hero. Like, almost always.
Anti-hero sometimes.
Sometimes, sure. Anyway, so it was kind of unclear, but Little Boy Aang, that kid, is he the sheriff's
grandson?
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah, because I guess the sheriff was like taking care of him while his parents were away.
Well, while his dad is away.
Dad is away, yeah.
Because I guess his mom is like dead.
Oh yeah, because his mom's buried in that town.
So he doesn't really have like a father figure, and Dollarhide is kind of like giving him like rough advice.
Yeah.
Right?
There's also another character that was like sort of like another son to Dollarhide.
Yeah,
the Native American guy.
Yeah.
Nat?
Is that his name?
I think his name was Nat.
So like one of his like ranch hands, basically.
Yeah.
And I didn't write his name down, but I said he's like Mexican Apache, I think.
It's kind of what he looks like, yeah.
No, because he said like he like was from Mexico. Now he could be Apache and be from Mexico, I think. They're like mostly in Texas.
Which is on the border of Mexico, so
Like, sure. I mean, I don't know.
it's possible.
He could be half Mexican, half Apache.
Yeah.
But I want to say he said something to that effect. Anyway.
But yeah, all these characters have like history. They all feel like real people that live in this world.
Yeah, and all these side characters I feel like are
More developed than Daniel Craig.
Yeah, they're at least more explored than Daniel Craig, who's given like very little to do, basically.
It feels like the main characters of this movie that you care about are all the side characters.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And they're kind of having their own little movie.
Yeah, I like them a lot more. And some of their subplots are really good, too.
Yeah.
Like I said, I like the one with Harrison Ford is like trying to like teach
Teach
Noah
his kid
Ringer
how
how
to
to
be
be
a
like
man.
a man, like the Wild West style. Like he kind of tells him about how like he had to like kill a man.
Slit his throat with the knife.
Yeah,
He was
like
take this knife.
out of mercy, like that's what makes you a man. You know,
Yeah.
like which is okay, but according to you. And then the like kind of hard-nosed preacher, and you know the more kind of educated bartender / doctor doesn't need to use a gun, and so like he's like, you want people to respect you need to get a gun and learn how to
Because
use
his
it.
problem is like he feels like nobody respects him. Like
Right.
people walk all over him.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The subplot is like he tries to teach him how to use a gun this whole movie.
And we see like shots of him practicing and just missing bottles.
Yeah. Okay. So we finally see an alien walk by Aang and gets real close to him. They sort of look like fish monsters with exoskeletons. His chest opens up and small hands appear, seemingly to examine the boy. The preacher arrives to shoot the alien but gets stabbed. Jake arrives and shoots the alien away with his bracelet. So I thought we could like take a moment to like talk about like the alien design, because here's a problem I think you're going to get a lot of times now when you do like an alien movie. Every design's been done.
Yeah.
How do you make an original looking alien now?
You kind of
Can't.
can't. It's always going to be compared to something always.
Yeah. First of all, if Star Wars hasn't done it by itself, you know, they have like over 100 different alien species.
Yeah.
Like, where else are you going to go? I really like this design, though. I think
It looks
unique.
good. It looks threatening.
Yeah. It's a little bit of like Alien, like the movie Alien.
A
but
little bit.
It's also a little bit Independence Day.
I
Because
don't remember what they looked like.
oh, they're really cool in Independence Day. So in Independence Day, the actual alien are like small. They're smaller than us, and they look like the caricature of an alien, which is like big heads,
the grays.
big beady eyes,
Mm.
small bodies. But they live within these exoskeleton robot suits that look more like the threatening alien.
Okay.
Like from the movie Alien. Like it looks a little bit like that. They got like these big heads, they have like eyes, like these scary looking mouths, but it's just an exoskeleton for like their like tiny little frail bodies. Have you ever seen that movie?
I saw it a long time ago.
Oh.
Like I was a kid.
I still like it. I know it's not that great, but I like it a lot. In that, they have to like rip open their suits to like show, you know, their actual little bodies. So in this, that is their bodies. They just happen to have like an exoskeleton, you know, like
Okay.
like a cockroach or whatever.
Yeah.
But then they open up their little chests and they've got like delicate little hands for like,
Yeah, they look like fleshy and
yeah, for like real world things. Like not because their other hands are kind of like giant spears. They're basically like lobsters. You know,
Yeah.
they got like these lobster claws, but like they open up their little chest cavity and they got like little
and
nice.
that's how they like I guess
dexterous
use
hands.
instruments and
Sure.
or just do everyday things.
Yeah, but the huge flaw is that their tiny little cute hands are right next to their exposed heart.
Yeah.
So that's a weird kind of evolutionary thing, right? I don't know how that happened, but it's a cool design overall, I think.
For sure.
There's also a lot in this movie of an alien's about to get you and then someone shoots it from behind.
That's a trope.
I know, but like once you do it more than once, like you can get away with it once or twice is all I'm saying. But
Yeah.
when you have to write yourself out of a scene like 6 times and then so-and-so shows up and shoots the alien from behind, I'm like, all right, come on.
Don't even make it a scene at that point.
Yeah. Do something else. I don't care. The gang ride out in the morning, but are held up by a gang. I shouldn't say gang, by bandits.
There we go.
Walton Hoggins recognizes Jake as their boss.
Hoggins or Goggins?
Walter Goggins, yeah, sorry.
Walton Hoggins.
Walton Hoggins. Goggins. It's Goggins. Jake, not recognizing him, improvises and commands them to lead them back to their camp. There he's confronted by a fellow bandit who threatens to kill them all for stealing his gold, just as the aliens approach. During the alien attack, a plane ropes up Ella. Jake jumps off his horse and onto the plane and shoots the wing off to free her. They land in a river, but the alien pilot attacks Ella. Jake shoots it, tends to her wounds, and carries her away. Yeah, so his gang recognizes him as like he was like their leader.
Yeah, and then he like abandoned them or left
guess
them and stole the gold.
I guess he stole the stolen gold. He betrayed the bandits
Yeah.
to take back to his wife or whatever. I like the part where, because again, this is like the Old West, so I guess like you can write these characters to be like horrible against women, and it's fine.
Yeah.
When he's like, all right, shoot the whore.
Oh, and everybody points their guns at Ella, and then the one guy points his gun at Doc.
Sam Rockwell's like, he said shoot the whore. That was pretty funny. There's like 2 or 3 funny gags on this.
And then when the guns turn back on him, he pulls out a gun. The guy's like, doesn't feel good, does it?
I like Sam Rockwell a lot. This is where it gets a lot more kind of like a run-of-the-mill action movie now. Not so much like a Western.
Yeah. It's weird because a lot happens here, but like not a lot of substance happens here. It's just kind of like the part with his former gang is probably the most interesting and probably important part of all
Yeah,
this.
but then I feel like this happens with these guys. Anytime they get written into like an interesting situation that they can't figure out how to get out, oh, that's when the aliens attack. It's just very convenient, you know? There have been a couple times where like some of these scenes are end capped by like an alien attack.
Yeah.
Okay. And then these two, Jake and Ella, like their dialogue is so sparse and like spread out through the whole movie that I'm like, they don't just talk to each other. You have no dialogue so far.
Yeah, it's like I'm loving everything happening except for the stuff happening involving Jake.
Yeah. And like they said a couple more words to each other over in the boat, but it wasn't much. And now she's like dying. And so I'm like, what was this?
And he's like freaking out.
Yeah. And so I'm like, do you guys have a connection? Is this supposed to be a love thing? It took me a very long time to figure out if like the movie is shipping these two characters. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because he has a wife who we don't know if she's alive or dead at this point.
Totally dead.
I thought she was alive. I'm like, all right, well, you know, they're going to put her.
She's going to be on the ship. Yeah.
Yeah, or something like that. So, I don't know. Anyway, they arrive back to Dollarhide and Doc, who take Ella and discover she's dead. Jake is in shock not having realized this. I was thinking, I'm like, she just kind of got lightly scraped, but I guess maybe she banged her head or something.
She could have banged her head.
Because, you know, he tended to her wound and like, I don't know, did she bleed out maybe?
She could have bled out. That looked like a lot of blood.
Yeah, maybe. At that moment, they are surrounded by Apache Indians, who take them back to their tribe and unceremoniously toss her corpse in the fire. I kind of laughed at that.
It was like, all right.
I was like, all right, well, in fairness, maybe I don't know, they think of dead people differently than we do. Like, a lot of people don't put a lot of emphasis on like a dead body. They're like, oh, that's just a vessel. Like the person's gone.
Time to get rid of the body.
You know what I mean? I don't know. I don't know that much about their
culture.
Yeah. Dollarhide argues with the chief. Yeah, using one of his men, a Mexican Apache, as a translator. So that's the character we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
Having each fought in wars against the other's people, they refuse to see eye to eye, but they're interrupted by a blaze in the fire, and a very alive and very naked Ella walks out of it.
Like a phoenix rising out of the flame.
I think that's what they were going for.
I think so.
I didn't think about that, but maybe. I can't decide if I like the little pairing of Dollarhide and the chief. It's like an odd couple thing that they put them together for a lot of this, the second half of this movie.
I think it's because they're like such polar opposites, though, but also they're like the same type of person.
Yeah, I think it's because they're like the prototypical like cowboy and Indian. You know what I mean? They
definitely are, yeah.
This is those archetypes. And then I was actually surprised that Ella had died. Again, I hadn't seen this movie. I was like, oh, is she done?
She's dead.
That trope of killing a character off just for like a quick moment and then like undoing it because you don't actually want that character dead. Right. Something that Marvel's done a bunch of times to like, you know, varying criticisms.
Yes.
So there's a shot in the trailer to this movie that always made me curious, like, what's the context? And it's this part when Olivia Wilde is like walking towards Daniel Craig in a big crowd of people and she's like naked. And I'm like, well, this is just like, you know, a sexy thing that they want to put in the trailer to sell the movie or whatever. But only seeing the trailer, I'm just like, they're just sexualizing her because she's hot. Right. Like if it was any other character, they wouldn't have written this scene. If it was any other actor. You know what I mean? And then I was always curious, how do they write around it? Because it seems like it's just kind of like, all right, how do we get her naked?
How do we get her naked and walking up to Daniel Craig?
Yeah. So it reminds me a lot of, later on they wrote Star Trek Into Darkness. And you know the scene
with Alice
with Alice Eve where she's like, I need to change, turn around. And he's like, okay. And then he turns and he takes a peek, and so does the camera, and it just kind of shows Alice Eve in her underwear for about like 3 seconds.
Yeah.
And you're like, what was that for?
To show that
she's hot.
That Kirk's a pervert.
It was just to like, it's just to show some skin for the movie. Like, that's it. That was like the worstly veiled attempt. That particular example gets like thrown around a lot.
Still to this day.
Yeah. Because it might be the worst one.
Yeah.
And so I was just kind of waiting to see like how they explained it. But in all honesty, like it kind of makes sense because like she like came out of a fire.
Yeah.
When I saw it in the movie, I wasn't like, oh, they just want to get her naked.
No, because it didn't feel like that.
It didn't feel like that. And so it's a chicken and the egg situation. Because I'm like, which came first? Did they have like on a whiteboard, get Olivia Wilde naked? Top priority, write your way to that. And this is what they came up with. Or did they write this and say, hey, wait a second. We can put Olivia Wilde naked on the trailer now to sell the movie. Which is it? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think the way it was done in the movie was fine, though.
I thought it was fine. But, I mean, my personal, like, thing I wanted to see in this movie was, like, and I've been wondering for 10 years, is how did they put this in the movie? Like, under what possible circumstance would this happen?
Well, she's a reanimated corpse.
Well, I didn't know that from the trailer, Birdo. I'm just saying. Yeah, I don't know. I guess it's fine. Ella reveals that she is an alien from a world that was taken by the aliens currently fighting them. She shape-shifted into human form. Is that why she's so gorgeous? Put a pin in that, by the way. To blend in. Sure, to blend in. But the body couldn't be healed. She also speaks any language, or at least both English and Apache. She explains that the aliens want gold, because that is as rare to them as it is to us. She wants to help stop them, and points to Jake, saying he can lead them to their ship. There's a little bit of lampshading there when we were talking about what lampshading is. It's like when you point out something ridiculous to make it seem less ridiculous.
Yeah, like when a character in universe does it.
Yeah, and Harrison Ford goes, "That's ridiculous." When he's like, the aliens are looking for gold.
They're on their own gold rush.
Yeah, and that's kind of like what the point of this movie and probably the comic book is what it's about, right?
Yeah.
Turning the whole Cowboys and Indians thing on its head and being like, well, what if a third party came in? Now the Cowboys are basically the Indians, and the Indians are also the Indians, and what are you going to do? You know what I mean? So, like, the aliens are coming onto Earth looking for gold. That's a metaphor for the Cowboys.
Yeah.
Like, going into Indian territory in search of what doesn't belong to them and, like, killing them
and wrangling
along the
people
way.
up and treating them like animals.
Exactly. So that is probably the most substantial part about this movie, and I think we should talk more about it in the analysis.
Yeah, that's a theme, right?
Yeah, I know, but I think like when it happened, I'm like, oh, okay. Like the whole movie's coming together now. Like this is what it's all about,
Yeah.
The other thing I want to talk about now, because it's gonna keep on coming up, is like the terminology of like American Indian, because a lot of people get confused because since a lot of times the term Native American gets used, it's almost like implied that American Indian or just Indian is like offensive.
Right.
But it's not. Like if you're drawing a line to like certain racist connotations with the term Indian, then yeah, obviously, but you could do that with a lot of like other words.
Yeah.
Like Hispanic or black or whatever. Jewish, obviously, or Jew gets a lot of like kind of bad connotations, but that is what their name is, right? So I had just like verify because this is something I've heard before, but I kind of like did a little bit more research. If you ask most like natives, like most American Indians, they're not like one big people. They're separate nations.
They're separate, yeah.
So what they would prefer to be called is by their nation's name. So,
but
like,
obviously, like you're not going to know that like right off the bat.
Sure, like an Iroquois or an Apache or whatever. But over the last like 500 years, they've come to accept like Indian and American Indian as like an all-encompassing term for all natives that were on this country's now land, right?
Yeah.
So
even though they're not from India at all in any way.
Sure. And I used to think that was a myth, but it's only a myth because people think, they say like, oh, there were Indians and India wasn't even a country back then. But those people in that area were still like Indians, and he thought he was in that area, and now this area is called the Indies because of it.
No, so Columbus was an idiot, and it made a bunch of things happen.
Yeah, exactly. I think this, all in all, just kind of a fun play on like kids playing Cowboys and Indians and how it's like fun, but it's like a problem, but it's fun and like I don't know. It's very interesting.
Do kids play Cowboys and Indians anymore?
I don't think they do. I didn't play Cowboys and Indians.
I don't think I did either, but it also wasn't unfamiliar to me either, though.
Yeah. How did that happen? Was it TV?
Probably.
Yeah.
Indian in the cupboard.
I liked that movie. I'm almost afraid to watch it again. You know what I mean?
Because of how dated it is and how it might come off.
I wonder if I'm gonna like watch it and be like
childhood ruin. Oh
God, yeah, childhood ruin, exactly. I'd rather just like remember it fondly. I don't know.
You want to know a good Cowboys and Indian movie?
Small Soldiers.
Yes.
I've read your mind, yeah. Because that one holds up, and it's probably a better like
it's so
like
good.
Cowboy and Indian kind of metaphor.
Yeah. The soldiers and the Gorgonites.
Yeah. I want to watch that now. Jake reminds them that he has amnesia, and the Apache chief reveals that he can help. He gives him a medicine, and he remembers being abducted and his wife being cut open and burned alive. That was a little bit rough.
Yeah.
The alien had dropped his bracelet weapon next to him onto the operating table, and Jake takes it, cuts the alien's face, and gets away. He wakes up and realizes that he can lead them back to the alien hideout. So, is this the part where you were like,
You should have just put the whole like,
thing
flashback here.
Yeah, I agree. Because this is just a flashback of like him like being like abducted, and he's like on like an operating table.
And like in the first flashback, when you just saw his wife like laying down and then like moving, it looked like something sexual was happening to her.
That was a little bit weird, yeah.
But then you realize she's just on an operating table getting like cut up and
because
shit.
He remembers it in pieces. So when you first see her laying down, they're like laying in bed together.
Right.
And then her body starts rocking.
It looks like she's like getting
that
like
was
raped
weird.
or something.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Because they're still on a real bed at that point. And then like he blinks and they're on an alien ship and they're both on different like operating tables staring at each other.
Yeah, it was almost like a little disturbing the way it should. Maybe that was intentional.
I don't like that. Yeah, I didn't.
But it was like I was like, ugh.
Yeah, that's a little bit weird. Other thing I wanted to talk about was like how stupid are these fucking aliens? This one in particular, who like just leaves his gun there.
Yeah, he takes off his wrist blaster thing and just puts it on the table.
And I just want to point out, he was on the other side of the room. He takes it off, carries it back with him to like Daniel Craig's side and just like puts it next to Daniel Craig. And so Daniel Craig like grabs a little like scalpel, like that hot iron thing, and just kind of like the alien one and just like slices his face. But I think the implication is that these are the dumb aliens, because Ella was like, these are just the scouts. Like they're here to find weaknesses in humans. And then later like actual armies are going to come.
Okay.
But then I read a review by Eber on his website, a review, and he like complained about how like the aliens seem dumb, even though he's like, I mean, they arrived on a spaceship that they presumably designed, and I'm like, I didn't design my car. Like I don't know how to.
True.
Like I don't know how to.
We
build
drive
a car.
cars and we're dumb.
Yeah, I'm dumb as fuck. Like I barely can change the tire. Like actually, I'm very good at changing tires. I'm just saying like anything more than that. You know, I'm like I can't do that. So I don't think that's huge...
flawed logic.
Yeah, that's how I feel. I feel like the implication is that these are the dumb ones. So Jake leads them to the base and he recruits his old gang to help. Meanwhile, the Apache leader and Dollarhide argue about their attack strategies. Both being warrior leaders, but also the prototypical cowboy and Indian, they cannot get along. Jake and his gang climb the structure to detonate their dynamite. They lure out the aliens and fight, while Jake and Ella sneak inside. I think this has one of the only other jokes that I really like. That like his idiot friend drops all the matches.
Oh, yeah.
And he's like, what are we going to do? And he just takes a cigarette out of his mouth. Daniel Craig's only real good scene in this whole movie is when he goes and recruits his friends.
Yeah.
Because he sits there and he gives his whole speech because his friends are like, all right, basically, we're going to go to Mexico.
And drink on a beach.
There's a ton of tequila. And we're not going to worry about any of this shit. And Daniel Craig's like, actually, that does sound fun. and usually you could sign me up for that. But we're just going to get killed over there because there's going to be more aliens coming. So how about we do something instead and we try to stop them? And the entire time he's like making a cigarette, with like some tobacco, rolling it up, and he lights it. And
that was a good scene.
That was a good scene. I'm like, that's the most dialogue he's had, by the way.
Yes.
Like in one sitting. Like he doesn't talk in most of this movie.
There was also a scene during this whole segment that I liked as well. It was when Dollarhide's farmhand was trying to convince the Apache that Dollarhide can be trusted and you should follow him. And he's telling like his story.
Yeah. It's being translated by Ella, who again conveniently speaks all languages.
Yeah.
About how like when he was a kid, like he lost his parents basically, and he
took him in and raised him as one of his own basically.
Yeah. And then he's actually a pretty good guy on the inside.
Yeah. Yeah, that's on the inside he's good.
I think he literally says that. Not as egregiously as like some other movies we've seen where like she can do whatever the plot demands.
Right.
But like, okay, like she's this alien who like we're not going to ask any more questions about how she's a shape-shifting, like basically like an angel alien who can create a different body after the first one died.
That looks exactly like the other one.
Yeah, and she can speak all languages. And what else can she do? Can she read minds? Like, can she see the future?
I mean, thankfully they don't go into it.
Yeah.
And at least they don't introduce any like weird other things, really.
Yeah. I think I'm okay with it. All things said and done. I do think it's an explanation as to why she's so beautiful, though. Because she's like...
She chose that body.
Right. Like, she's actually an alien. She's not real. No real human would be in the Wild West
looking like that.
Because she looks like she has makeup. And I think it's actually her eyes look like that. Like, her eyelashes, like, naturally kind of outline her eyes.
Uh-huh.
There's some people that, like, look like that. And they look like they're wearing makeup. That one actor from Lost who played the mayor in The Dark Knight. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
He has like really thick eyelashes and he looks like he's wearing eye makeup all the time. Anyway, in the ensuing fight, Dollarhide's Apache hand dies. Oh yeah, the guy we were just talking about.
Yeah.
And his alien killer is shot by Doc. That was a great little moment.
Yeah.
Because he's, again, subplot of this movie, he spends the entire time trying his best to like learn to shoot. And then when it counts, he shoots the alien like a badass.
And Dollarhide's like really broken up about him dying too.
Yeah, so I guess he never admitted it, but like he sees a son in this guy.
Yeah, and he does say it like to him
he
too.
finally says it, but he's just been too proud to say it because, he's stuck with piece of shit Percy. You know what I mean? He
said, I always dreamed of having a son like you.
Well, because he says, I always dreamed of having a dad like a father like you or something. So, Harrison Ford says back to him, I've always dreamed of having a son like you. Kind of funny because it's kind of a slight on Percy, who fucking sucks. And
then he's like, go get your son. Go get Percy.
Yeah, no, that was a great moment.
It was.
Definitely. Now the chief trusts Dollarhide and they all run out together to fight. Jake and Ella find the prisoners who are slowly awakened and freed. They reach the core of the ship and Ella needs the bracelet to destroy the ship. He can't remove it with his mind, so she kisses him to get him to stop overthinking and it falls off of him. Okay.
If it works.
Once inside, she says goodbye to him, implying she's on a suicide mission. There's some more fighting. Dollarhide uses a spear and I guess earns the respect of the chief. Jake gets caught by the alien who operated him in the first place. Dollarhide saves him and they get away safely. Ella reaches the core of the ship as it's taking off. She sets the bracelet to detonate and holds it tightly. There's a big explosion.
There's a lot of fighting in this sequence.
Yeah.
This is like the climax.
Yeah, for sure. A lot of the action is pretty good. For me, I think if I'm going to pick holes in it, it's in kind of the plotting of the action, which to me is very important when you have like an action sequence. It's like the specific plotting of just that sequence works.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? It's like you can't just have characters like appear and reappear in different places. You can't just like, everything has to kind of like make sense. And I think there was like 2 occasions where like the chief and Dollarhide are exchanging glances and they're kind of like, oh, like maybe we can get along, and then they do it again. And I'm like, then why'd you do it in the first place?
What I did like though about like this whole action sequence climax part of the movie is a lot of the subplots start to pay off. So we have Doc shooting the alien.
Yeah.
And then we have like Dollarhide with the chief and with like what was one of his like surrogate sons, kind of basically.
Right. Yeah.
And then we've got the kid who ends up killing an alien with the knife that Dollarhide gave him.
Yeah, he gets very conveniently like he
gets like trapped in like, was it like a crevice?
He falls in a kid-sized hole. And so the alien can't get him with his crab claws. So then he opens his, which is so stupid that he did this. So he opens his like chest cavity up so he can grab him with his real hands. But again, his heart's there, and the kid just stabs him in the heart, which is kind of hardcore, honestly.
Yeah.
But
there's like blood just all over him and stuff.
Yeah.
Did you notice with the prisoners how similar it was to like the deadlights and It? Where they're just kind of staring at the light and just out of it.
Yeah, I didn't think of it that way, but maybe.
I immediately thought of It. Like, even with like the white eyes and everything while they were looking at it.
The little love scene is just, it's so forced. It's all so weak that I'm like, I don't think
it was a romance.
But later on, he's like,
thinking
concerned about her.
Yeah.
Like, he's concerned about her a lot when she like gets captured and...
So maybe he's into her and she was just using him this whole time to get her revenge.
But he didn't realize that his wife had died until the flashback. But he also didn't know he had a wife, I guess. I don't know. It's all very unclear.
I don't think he knew he had a wife, yeah.
Yeah, it's all very unclear,
right,
like,
maybe
what is.
Old
also,
Jake wouldn't have liked her, but new Jake does.
Yeah, also he has so little dialogue that who knows what he's thinking. Not the audience, for sure.
The least developed character in the movie is the main character.
For sure. I thought that whole you use your mind thing was kind of weak too. Like, that's how you fire it. I thought there was a trigger on it.
Well, he never like pulled a trigger though. He always just kind of pointed and fired.
Yeah, but there was a thing that... Okay, so if you look at it, we'll link pictures below. It's a thing on his wrist. And then when the aliens get close, like, it powers on and it expands.
Yeah.
And then when he's holding it to fire, he's grasping onto something. So, like, something grows that he can grab onto.
I guess it could still be explained that way, though, where it's like, well, whenever the aliens were nearby, that's when he, like, thought he needed the weapon or a weapon, and then...
No, I think it just powers on when the alien tech is near.
Which is weird. So if an alien's by themselves,
it's like
they
a Bluetooth.
Just never...
Yeah, I guess. It's not good.
It just never works?
Maybe you have to be near your ship or whatever. It's a very convenient plot device. I alert someone the aliens are nearby.
Like, oh shit, they're about to attack us.
It just beeps. My understanding is that like he like grabs something, some form of a trigger. I think it's very weak to say like, oh no, you control it with your mind. Do you? I don't know. I don't buy any of that.
I guess he just stopped thinking.
I think if a random person kissed me, I would not stop thinking. I would think a lot more things.
Like,
you know what I mean?
He's not thinking about his wrist anymore.
Well, I thought for a second that maybe she was lying to him the whole time. She's like a double agent and she's one of the aliens.
Oh, and she took it and disintegrates him.
Yeah, I was glad it wasn't important. I thought it was going to be some sort of like MacGuffin that they're like, oh no, this is the special one and I need it. It's a key to turn
it
off
was
the
important,
engine.
but
it's just a bomb, basically.
Yeah,
like
they just used it
as
as
a
a
weapon,
bomb.
and she just kind of rewired it so it would explode instead of fire.
Yeah,
I'm like, oh,
it's
that
not
works.
like a very unique device. Or anything like that.
Which I'm happy about. Like, it's not special.
Oh yeah, this is the one thing that can control.
It's the key, and we got to get the key to the thing. Okay, all right. Like, it's just like a Transformers movie at that point.
I guess it could have been a key to the ship, though, if all of them wear it on their wrist.
Yeah, maybe. Explosion was pretty good, though.
Yeah.
Afterwards, the town is prospering because they realize there's gold to be found. I guess no one learns a lesson here, by the way. After all this, they're like,
oh,
right,
shit, we didn't know there was that much gold here.
They didn't learn that, like, it's actually meaningless. You know, it's just like a tool for war. Like, no, they're just like, all right, now it's ours. Like,
yeah. I mean,
I don't know if you noticed the saloon changed their name. It was called something else at the beginning, and at the end it's called like the Gold Rush Saloon.
Whoa.
Oh, I know. So the saloon is popping off with patrons, celebrating all the victims returning. I got real big Star Wars vibes. When at the end they all celebrate together.
Oh, yeah.
If there were some of those Indians in the saloon,
it would have been Return of the Jedi.
It's Return of the Jedi.
Banging on the skulls of the dead aliens.
Dollarhide seems to have turned over a new leaf now that he's not drying up on cattle and looks after his son more. He and the sheriff agree to claim that Jake died in battle in order to let Jake be free and start over. Dollarhide offers him a job, but he rides off instead.
To be fair, that's pretty in character for him.
Pretty much.
Hey, you want to help me out? No.
Nope. It's like the 6th time someone asks him to help him, and he's like, no. And he just, like, rides away.
Where the fuck is he going?
This last bit, I think, had it been written a little bit differently, it would have been a lot better.
Yeah.
Because it just seemed like a big patch over everything. Like, all right, everything's fine now. Look how happy everyone is. Okay, the end.
It was weird because I did like it because it did feel like a Star Wars type ending.
Yeah.
But like a rushed one because it was a little abrupt. So just like, all right, bye.
All right, everything's great now, and all the characters are different, and everyone's happy again. Like, even Dollarhide is like a completely different man.
Not Percy too.
Yeah, maybe Percy because of what he went through, but like Dollarhide mostly because he's like, I have money again. Because it seemed like the through line here is that like this town was
in the dumps.
Before.
Yeah.
Because they said, oh, it's just a mining town, and they're like, it was gonna be like, but I guess they couldn't find gold. And then Dollarhide's like super rough around the edges, and he's like gonna like kill people over like a couple cows, like
because that's all he had.
Yeah, like everyone's like really rough, and it's kind of like
rough and like desperate.
Yeah, and I'm like, is this supposed to be like about like the desperation of like being broken towards you to like a different person? And now that there's money and there's prosperous, now everyone's like nice to each other because they're not.
We'll see how long that lasts.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm like, they didn't really do anything there, so that's not what they were going for. So I'm like, what are we saying here?
Everyone's gonna be happier now that they have money. They're also probably happier because they survived an alien attack.
But isn't that the point of the movie? Is that like we shouldn't have been rushing for gold, and now once they all found the gold, they're like, all right, everything's great now.
Well, yeah, because I mean, you're already there. You're not gonna turn down the gold because you'll die.
But what if? Okay, sure. But like, what if like at the end of like Avatar, they're like, all right, like the humans left, and now us. What are they called? The blue people?
The Na'vi.
Now the Na'vi, we can harvest the unobtainium for ourselves. No, that's not what you wanted. You wanted like peace.
Yeah, they ripped down their own tree.
Yeah. That's kind of what I got here. I'm like, because again, it's all about how like the aliens are like the white people. And now the white people are the aliens again. So, you know,
yeah, now the white people are the white people again.
Yeah.
And
so we're back to square one. What do we learn?
no, things are back to normal now. So it's fine.
We didn't learn anything, basically. It reminds me
is this movie about how white people don't learn their lessons?
Maybe. It just reminds me of like the end of Burn After Reading when J.K. Simmons is like, so what did we learn here? And the guy's like, fuck if I know. Like, I don't know. Maybe we learned that there's nothing to be learned here. Like, maybe this is nothing. I don't know. But that's satire.
Everything's meaningless.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's pretty much the movie then.
Yeah.
So overall, like, look, I just feel like what I said in the beginning is definitely what's happening. Is that classic Orsi and Kurtzman movie where while I was watching it, I was really enjoying it. Like, I really liked it. You know, when Ella was revealed to be an alien, I'm like, oh, that's a twist. Oh, I perked up. I'm like, this movie, this could be something. And then it hit some of those themes, that Harrison Ford scene. I'm like, oh yeah, this is all really good. 5 minutes after it's over, I'm like, well, actually, you know, I don't know about Daniel Craig. And then like 20 minutes later, I was like, what the fuck were they doing in the second act? They just kind of repeated the same plot points over and over again, you know? And then I'm like, why can she speak Apache? And why does he refuse everything? And why does he like her? And was that a love story? And like, it all starts falling apart the more you think about it, you know?
Yeah.
It's just like a shiny coat of paint over like a piece of garbage. And I'm not saying this movie's a piece of garbage. I'm just saying that's like the metaphor I can think of. I'm just like,
right.
It's shiny and it's pretty and it feels exciting in the moment, but then like
afterwards, like
it's kind of hollow, right?
It doesn't hold up.
I do like the commentary here on the gold rush, taking of Indian land. We talked about this in the plot, but like how it's a metaphor on like, you know, white people going to the West during the gold rush. Colonizing, killing Indians, taking their land, taking their gold. It's like Avatar, like we said, that one movie, except at the end, the Na'vi just did tear down their own tree. And this idea of like your enemy is only your enemy until you have a common enemy and a bigger threat arrives, right?
Yeah.
That theme kind of goes through this movie a couple times because at the beginning, you've got Dollarhide is basically the bad guy. You know what I mean? Like, he's the antagonist for the first act of the movie.
Yeah.
And then the second the aliens arrive, suddenly it's like, all right, we're clearly all in this together. And even Dollar Height says, like, I feel like you owe me. And then later on, we can figure out what this all means and where my gold is and whatever.
Yeah. Because at first I'm like, does he mean like, because it's like his fault that his son got taken? I guess he found out right before that he stole his gold because he like says something about it.
He
briefly.
said he stole my gold. Yeah.
You stole my gold.
So I kind of like that. Like, the things in this movie I do like a lot.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have any thoughts on those.
Well,
like,
a lot of the stuff I liked about the movie, like, the Gold Rush commentary is good and it's appropriate. It's a little on the nose.
I mean, it's as much on the nose as like Avatar is. Like,
Avatar is very on the nose.
Clearly.
But I also really like how every character besides really Daniel Craig's character has a lot going on in this movie too. And I said this before, like, they have their own history and their own lives. Yeah. And you do actually feel that. On
a pros and cons list, like, pro, well-developed secondary characters.
Absolutely.
And there's a lot of them. At the expense of not developed main character at all. And that's a huge shame because it's like Daniel Craig's a good actor. And I feel like
he wasn't given a lot to do in this movie.
No, he's just look hot
he's
and
star
rugged.
Power.
Yeah. Just be Western James Bond. That's it. Can you be an Oklahoma James Bond? Can you do that? Like,
but it's like, because we had all those side characters though, like when all the subplots like started to resolve, you felt good about it.
Yeah, but that's also what a movie is. Like,
yeah, but not a lot of movies
like, fundamentally,
do not a lot of movies do the side characters like that though.
Okay, yeah, no, you're right.
Because a lot of it's like just focused on like the main character and like their posse. You know, this was like all the tertiary characters were the ones that had stuff to say and do.
Yeah.
And I don't know, something about that's just really, it tickles me.
Oh, I'm glad you were tickled. Yeah, I guess the biggest con here is like, his character does feel like Link, where he doesn't actually like have a character.
He's just a badass that doesn't say anything or do anything.
Yeah, because
he does things. But
you being like the player of the video game, you project onto him. You tell him where to go, and you imagine yourself interacting with these people. But this is a movie. This is different.
It's a different medium. Yeah.
Yeah, like this isn't a first person or third person like video game, right? So yeah, bad on that sense. Tonally, like, this is supposed to be like the genre mix because it's in the title. Like, this is Cowboys and Aliens.
The only other one I could think of is Pride and Prejudice and Zombies.
So I was going to bring that up because I feel like this
I like that movie.
I didn't see it. You like it?
I like it a lot.
Well, I feel like you would. But it reminds me of that, and it reminds me of Abraham Lincoln Vampire.
That's not a bad movie either.
So it's such an like affront on these like genres when you just like clash them like that. I feel like it's an interesting experiment, but I'm like, does it work? Really, does it work? And it feels like there's many different ways of doing it. So for example, you can draw a line between this and The Mandalorian. Why? Because they're both Jon Favreau's projects based on things that he's passionate about. He's passionate about science fiction, and he's passionate about Star Wars, and he's passionate about classic Westerns.
Yeah.
And he made 2 sci-fi Westerns. One being Mandalorian and the other one being
Cowboys and Aliens.
Cowboys and Aliens. And in one, it's okay, here's a Western set in space.
Yeah.
Right? So the genre is still Western, but the subject matter is more sci-fi fantasy.
But it is still more Western, though, because of how it's made.
Sure, in genre.
Yeah.
But you look at the characters, they're aliens.
Yeah.
And lightsabers and blah, blah, blah.
But like this specifically, you're saying like this genre is literally like 2 genres.
It's basically like Celebrity Deathmatch with like Cowboys and Aliens. You know, with these 2 genres specifically. Like not just literal cowboys and literal aliens. I'm talking about like a Star Wars movie and like a Western, like Good, the Bad, the Ugly, or like.
And I think that's why in each of the titles that we mentioned, they explicitly say in the title that basically this is going to be a genre mashup. That way nobody's caught off guard going into it.
Because someone would get up and leave the movie.
Yes, because it's not for everyone.
No, right. I feel like, to me, this is putting pineapple on pizza.
I love pineapple on pizza.
Okay, but see, here's the thing. Pineapple on pizza is like this Venn diagram, and it has a very thin overlap, you know? Because pineapple's a great fruit. Who doesn't like pineapple? And people love pizza. The second you put pineapple on pizza, everyone has a big problem with it because what you've done is you've insulted two big camps of people, essentially.
But then there's the people in the middle who are like, this is good.
You've made a very small amount of people happy. And
I'm happy.
when you make movies like that, sometimes it's wonderful. And we talked about this. I think we were talking about Justice League, where I was like, he's making a lot of creative decisions. Zack Snyder's Justice League specifically. I was like, Zack Snyder's making a lot of creative decisions that is not going to fly with a lot of people.
No, it's going to piss people off.
But he likes them, and that's why he makes them. And why else would you make a movie?
He makes his movies for himself.
Exactly. And I feel like that's how you should make a movie. I don't feel like you should make movies by committee or to make a certain demographic happy or to make as much money as you possibly can. Make movies that you like, and people with those same tastes will come and see them. Right? Because that's what art is. Like, when you go to an art gallery, no one's, like, making the thing that's going to get the most attention. They're making what, you know, their soul wants to make, like what their inner artist demands. And then people who like it will look at it. And people who don't like it can fuck off, basically, right?
The issue with that is the film industry as a whole.
Exactly. You need to make money. So that's a whole nother thing. But so here we've got these two clashing genres. And the way I feel like he made it is like this crossfade where it starts out as squarely a Western and it finishes as squarely a sci-fi fantasy movie, right?
Yeah.
And somewhere in the middle, it goes from one to the other, like a crossfade when you go from one song to another song. You know what I mean? And like, you don't really know where one starts and the other one ends. Pretty much like at the act switches. So like at the end of Act 1, like it's somewhere in mixed, and by the end of Act 2,
during Act 2 is when it's
a transition. And Act 3 is like, all right, we're basically in like a Marvel or Star Wars movie now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And a lot of people's problem is that tonal shift between those two genres. And I would say, but like, that's not my problem with this movie.
You had to know what you were getting into.
That's the thing. It's in the goddamn title.
Yeah.
And it's in the trailer. And I think the trailer sells this movie very well because it doesn't pretend like this is something that the trailer is not. It's not like a bait and switch.
No. You know damn well there's going to be aliens in this movie. They're going to be attacking these cowboys and they're going to be fighting.
Yeah. But again, like if you had done like the Marvel treatment on this, it would have been more consistent and it wouldn't have been this weird kind of like genre experiment. It wouldn't have been this mishmash. Like, the movie at the end is not the movie in the beginning, is what I'm saying.
Oh, okay.
You think about at the beginning where it's kind of like, it's gritty and it's dark, and here are these cowboys looking for scalps. And at the end, they're like, everything's fine, and we love each other, and do you want to come be a part of our family, Jake? Like,
and he's like, nope.
I don't know. Like,
nope, I think I'd rather ride off into the desert.
Yeah. So what I was getting at, I don't think this is my problem with the movie. I think it's a fine experiment. There has to be experimental movies. Should they be big blockbuster films? Probably not. But hey, like a lot of smart people went in to make this movie. Like,
I mean, and it's a fun movie overall.
Yeah. I don't know. I can't sit here and say like, oh, it's Orsi and Kurtzman that like ruined it for me. Other names on this is David Lindelof, who used to work with them a lot. He also kind of helped create Lost. Okay. And then also now is the showrunner for the new Watchmen series.
Was he the showrunner on Daredevil also?
No, that is
the show was created by Drew Goddard.
Drew Goddard. Yep, that's him.
He wasn't like showrunner, but he created it.
Okay. Yeah, that guy.
Okay.
What were you just talking about?
Ghost Rider.
No, god damn it. You had that locked and loaded, didn't you?
I was trying to tie it into the Western part of it, but Sam Elliott's not in this movie for some reason.
You know, the sheriff reminded me a lot of Sam Elliott.
Like a young Sam Elliott?
Yeah, he had a very similar voice.
Yeah. Missed opportunity. Sam Elliott should have been in this movie.
Probably. Oh, yeah. So I was talking about Orsi and Kurtzman. They were brought in a little bit later. This movie already had a script, and they changed it a lot. So it's hard to tell, like, who... You know, there's 5 names on the written by.
There's a lot of writing.
Yeah. So it's hard to tell, like... You know, who did what and whatever, and it's easy for us to sit here and be like, oh, it's those two's fault. I don't fucking know. Like, maybe they made a lot of aspects better while making a few aspects worse.
It's also one of those things like too many cooks.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I wonder what, like, maybe a more singular vision would have done to this. Apparently, this doesn't follow the source material that much anyway, so who
I know nothing about the source material. So.
I didn't either. It's a short...
It's just like
novel.
Just a single graphic novel, and that's it.
105 pages, so it's not very long.
Wow.
Okay, so that's the equivalent of like 2 or 3 issues.
And it sold for $5.
Yeah. But what I was saying is, what would a singular vision do to like the main character? Would they prioritize the main character? Is he a product of like getting chopped up and for other people?
That's possible because he had a backstory. We just didn't really explore it.
Or like a regular story. First of all, I think this movie needed to be a little bit longer. And we say that a lot because I feel like
this movie was like 2 hours too.
It was 2 hours, but you try to put so many characters in that, and I feel like you prioritized a lot of the secondary characters, which was fine.
Maybe like another 20 minutes would have done this movie some.
Another 10 to 15, 20 maybe, just so that you could kind of develop the main character more. I feel like he doesn't have enough scenes. He should have had more to do. He should have had more dialogue.
He didn't interact with anyone.
Yeah. It made me really hard to follow him as our protagonist. You know, when I'm more interested
I felt like Doc was the protagonist.
Yeah. Not Doc. I felt like Harrison Ford got a lot of good scenes.
Harrison Ford,
he had
kind of stole the show.
Absolutely. And he had some really good, those like stories. He told 2 or 3 stories.
Yeah.
And it's perfect for like the Western genre when it's just kind of like you're walking around and, you know, instead of doing like a cheesy flashback,
he's telling the story.
He's telling the story and you have to listen. And it's all put on how well that scene is written. And it's all put on how well the actor delivers that dialogue. Yeah. You know, little monologues like that are awesome. And that really kind of like puts it on the actor. And he kills it.
And then when his ranch hand was like telling one of the stories and he got like pissed off at him for like listening to the stories that he told his son.
Yeah.
That was actually a good scene because it's like
it sets up their relationship a little bit.
Yeah, because he's clearly like very upset that his like son's gone.
Yeah.
And he's like, those stories were for my son, like they weren't for you. But like all in all, like he actually did care about this guy. It's like he's trying to pretend that he doesn't care about him.
Right.
Like to him.
Yeah. Well, I think part of it is like,
you think he's like guilty that he considers him like a
no,
son?
I think he's slightly racist.
He sort of is, because he even says like, get it through your thick Indian skull.
Well, yeah. Well, not only that,
rude.
Seriously, it's like an internalized thing from fighting wars against these people, and you almost can't.
Yeah,
the thing is like that's the don't like take this out of context. It's the kind of mild racism that is you can kind of not forgive, but you can kind of empathize that this guy is a soldier. He went to war,
right?
And his only experience with like Indians
is
hostility and violence, and them trying to specifically kill him.
Yeah.
So
he's bitter.
You know what? And that's a theme that could have, or an element that could have been explored a little bit more with him and the chief, because that's why they don't get along, because they've only have ever fought each other.
Yeah.
Again, the prototypical cowboy and Indian.
And it's explored, but very like on a surface level.
Very surface level. That's what I was going to say.
Superficially.
They very superficially, because they just kind of like glance at each other and like, all right, I guess we're cool now. Are you cool? Like, couldn't you have explored this theme a little bit more? Because it is very interesting that these are both guys that are supposed to be good guys. All the other characters are like, no, these are like, you know, they're good guys once you get to know them. They've just been through some shit. And Harrison Ford has spent this entire movie going like, I was basically made a man through like the crucible of like war.
Yeah.
You know,
and it's brought up a few times that he hates fighting.
Yes. He's actually kind of more of a pacifist.
Yep. He hates being called colonel.
Right. Yeah. He said, the people who have called me that are mostly dead. So he's seen some shit basically. So I think that would have been a little bit more interesting to kind of explore, like, how does he view Indians? Not just like how surface level we got it, but really how does he see Indians, and how do some of those other Indian characters see him because of, you know, their situation?
That would have been really cool to explore.
Yeah.
It was like one of those things where like we got a taste of it and that was it.
Right. And so that what I'm getting at is I feel like he does feel these feelings for this guy as like, you know, a father figure to him, and that he is kind of like this surrogate son, but he also like his internalized like anti like
he's
Indian.
Like, I shouldn't feel this way about you.
Like you're my worker and you're an Indian and like whatever. Yeah. You know what I mean? But then by the end he realizes like, oh no, like
as he's like holding him and crying that he's dying.
You're actually kind of like my real son. My actual kid fucking sucks. So anyway,
like, God damn it, what did Percy do now?
Yeah,
he shot a deputy. Now I gotta go reason with them.
I love Harrison Ford. Yeah, like action's good. We said it.
Yeah.
A lot of the way this movie is shot is really
It's
good.
a well-directed movie.
It's Jon Favreau.
Yeah.
It's like, what do you expect? You know, like you know his track record.
Elf, Iron Man.
Yeah, Elf. Come on. All those action scenes in Elf. No, but like, his track record. Like, you know what you're going to get. And he knows what he's doing.
Yeah. He's a skilled filmmaker.
I think, like we said, it's a big swing. But it's a big attempt at an experiment here. I only think it falls flat because of like these character things we're talking about.
Yeah.
More so, and some of these little plot things that kind of don't make sense. Or like, why are we wasting time just kind of doing the same bits over and over again? Overall, I had fun watching the movie. Like, I didn't hate it.
No, it did its job in that regard. It was an entertaining movie. Granted, it might be one of those like just movies like, hey, just turn off your brain and watch it, which I kind of wish there was a little bit more to it than that.
A little more substance, yeah.
Overall, like, fine. It's a fine movie. Like I said, I don't hate this movie in any way.
Yeah. All right, so guys, this is Keep or Cancel. This is the part of the show where we talk about the people in the movie and we decide if we're going to keep them or we're going to cancel them. So I thought for this Cowboys and Aliens, we could do the two obvious ones, Daniel Craig and Harrison Ford.
Okay.
That sound good?
Yeah.
We already did the Doctor.
Oh, Sam Rockwell.
Sam Rockwell. We actually already did Sam Rockwell. 1% already
Sam
in this movie.
Elliott in Ghost Rider?
No. Oh, fuck. God, you're so good at that. Sam Rockwell we did in the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
That's right. He was the young Foot Clan.
It was like one of his first acting gigs. So if you're interested in our Keep or Cancel on Sam Rockwell, go check out the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles episode. Yeah. So the 1991.
1990.
Yeah, that one. But the two obvious stars here, Daniel Craig and Harrison Ford, the two people that hate their most famous roles.
Yeah.
I don't know if they actually hate these roles or not, but that's kind of what they're known for, is like they're just kind of like begrudgingly still doing them. You know what I mean? Like Daniel Craig is obviously most famous for James Bond, but like he's not enthused by it anymore.
He's just kind of like done with it.
Yeah. So he's getting his last outing as James Bond, No Time to Die, which comes out. Who knows? It has a date, but I don't know what it is because it was supposed to come out 2 Novembers ago. So who fucking knows? And then Harrison Ford, who like doesn't like Star Wars or Indiana Jones. I don't know what he likes.
I don't know if he hates the franchises. I think he's just not
a nerd. That's the thing.
Yeah.
To him, it's just a job
that he does really well.
Yeah. And he has no problem doing the job. He's like, yeah, like whatever, I'll do it. Yeah. But at the same time, like he's not a huge fan like most fans are. So who do you want to do first?
We can do Daniel Craig.
Yeah, I was about to say. I got some selected filmography here, as we usually do. Have you ever seen A Kid in King Arthur's Court?
I've heard of the movie. I have not seen it myself.
See, that's the thing. You weren't a kid at that right time period where they showed this in school like every 6 months for some fucking reason. Like when I was in elementary school, whenever they rolled out the TV, the one TV and VCR combo that like the entire school had to share, and they had it like on like wheels. Whenever they rolled that into the classroom, there was like a 50% chance that we were watching Kid in King Arthur's Court.
Wow.
He has like a minor role in that.
Okay. He's not like the main kid?
No, he's not the kid. Oh. Like the first 3 movies out on this list are movies that I've seen, and yet I did not know Daniel Craig was in it because he didn't become famous until afterwards. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Kid in King Arthur's Court, that's the one where like just like a normal high school kid finds a time travel thing and he ends up in like Arthurian medieval times.
Oh. I'm sure if I saw that as a kid, it'd be like a fun movie.
Yeah. It's a movie that I've seen 1,000 times as a kid, and yet I don't remember almost any of it. Oh. So I'd almost be interested in like, we need like a second podcast to go into some of these like forgotten kid movies. Forgotten
childhood
from the
films.
90s. That's an idea right there.
The Secret of Nim.
I have no idea. So,
what?
Lara Croft, Tomb Raider. Have you seen that one? That's the movie.
I've seen it with Angelina Jolie.
Yeah.
I did not know Daniel Craig was in it.
Me neither. I just saw it on his filmography. I've seen both those. But I remember she was on a boat. That's pretty much it.
I just remember seeing them as a kid. And that's it. I couldn't tell you a single like detail about the movies.
Yeah. Road to Perdition, and we were just talking about this. That's a comic book movie. But because it's not about like superheroes per se, it's just kind of like a crime comic.
Okay.
It doesn't really fit in our thing. Also, they made One and Done. It won Academy Awards, and it's not by no means like a failed franchise where they tried to make more and they couldn't,
Right.
So, bunch of reasons why we can't touch that. And then Layer Cake. You ever see that?
I've never even heard of it.
Me neither. And so I had like a group chat with some friends, and we made a movie club.
Mm-hmm.
We would assign movies to each other. So one of my friends assigned me Layer Cake because he was like, "This is the movie that got Daniel Craig in as James Bond." This was like essentially like his audition. It's like a crime movie in the UK.
Okay.
It's pretty good, actually.
Is he the criminal?
No, he works for like a crime organization. I think he's like a fixer.
Okay.
Or like an accountant. Yeah, I think that's what it's about. I think he's an accountant for a bunch of mobsters. Anyway, it's a good movie. You should check it out. And then obviously James Bond.
Oh, yeah.
A series of James Bond films that you have not seen.
I have not seen the Daniel Craig ones.
You've seen the other ones?
I've seen the Pierce Brosnan ones.
Oh, okay. Have you seen any older ones?
I think I've seen like one of the Sean Connery ones, and that's it.
Oh, they can be pretty fun, the old ones.
Kind of campy, though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're fun, though. This newest iteration of James Bond is where it got, like, pretty good. Because they were fine before. Like, varying degrees of, quality, I guess.
Right.
But, like, yeah, the Pierce Brosnan ones, like, one is really good, one is okay, and then, like, two of them are bad. Right? And, like, one of them, which is, like, absolutely horrible.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how it goes for a lot of these James Bond movies, but this is the part where they're like, what if we make this a little bit more serious and a little bit more serialized?
Okay.
Because the old James Bond movies are very, like, episodic. Like, you don't have to watch them in order. You don't have to
like
watch
a serial.
them all. No, it's the opposite.
the opposite of a serial.
It's
like
episodic, yeah. Whereas,
yeah.
Yeah. So whereas the Daniel Craig ones have, like, overarching stories.
Okay.
And it was, like, a reboot, too, because Casino Royale is based on the very first novel, Casino Royale. But they didn't have the rights, like, to make the movie. So, like, it's a movie that never got made, despite being the very first James Bond novel. There's a non-canon Casino Royale movie, but it's not.
Non-canon?
It's not, like, EON production, so it doesn't involve, like, them. So they're like, once they finally had the rights to it, they use that as some inspiration to, like, reboot the series or whatever.
Okay.
And then Quantum of Solace, Skyfall, Spectre, and No Time to Die.
I heard that Quantum of Solace is like the weak one.
Yeah, it is, because it was done during the writer's strike.
Oh.
I don't know if you know this, but there was a big, like fans were upset when they casted Daniel Craig, because at the time, James Bond was three things, always. He had to be a man, he had to be British, and he had to have, like, handsome black hair.
Okay.
And Daniel Craig only checked off two of those boxes. He was blonde. And they hated that. Fans were, like, in an uproar about that they casted a blonde man to be James Bond.
Is he blonde in the movies, or did they dye his hair?
No, like, he's just blonde. He's like a dirty blonde. After the first movie, no one gave a shit because they're like, oh, this guy's awesome.
It was a good movie.
He's a great actor. He's a great James Bond. And then have you seen some of these older movies that he did during his James Bond run?
Yeah, The Golden Compass is terrible.
I've never seen it. I know it's like a Christian allegory sort of book.
Sort of. But, like, a lot of people consider it, like, anti-Christian for some reason.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Adventures of Tintin. I don't know who he voiced in that. Girl with a Dragon Tattoo.
I've heard so much about it. I've never watched it.
The American one. Because there's three of them that are Swedish?
I haven't watched either version.
Okay.
I haven't read the book it's based on either.
Yeah, so I watched all of them. I watched those three movies, and then the American one by David Fincher.
Okay.
Yeah, he's the guy who did, like, Seven and Zodiac and the Facebook movie.
Okay, I've seen Zodiac and The Social Network. I think those are the only two movies of his that I've seen, though.
He also did Alien 3, but he won't talk about it.
Well, I don't blame him.
Because that was, like, his first movie that they just, like, handed it to him.
It's not a good movie.
And he's like, this doesn't represent me at all. Like, he wants his name scratched off of it.
He's embarrassed about it.
Yeah, he's embarrassed by it. But yeah, Girl with the Dragon Tattoo is pretty good. Star Wars Force Awakens, he plays a Stormtrooper. He's the one that gets mind controlled by
by Rey to unshackle her and drop the weapon.
Yeah. If you listen close enough, you can sort of recognize his voice.
Okay.
There was rumors that, like, his official name is, like, JB007, but, like, he's uncredited, but apparently it's like an FN something. But that's a missed opportunity because, like, it doesn't matter. Like, they're not going to say his name, you know?
FN007.
Yeah. Logan Lucky. Did you see that movie? I think it came out, like, 2 years ago.
I've heard of it. I haven't seen it.
It was one of those where I saw the trailer and I'm like, he looks really fun in that. Like, he's like a wacky character.
Okay.
In that. And then Knives Out.
I've seen that. He's great in that.
fantastic.
Also, that's just a fun movie.
It's a fantastic film. It's so good. It's worth rewatching. I think I've seen it 3 times. And they're filming the sequel now, which is
nice.
I think the plan is going to be, because there's like 3 more that they're going to make.
Okay.
Or infinite. Is that it's like an anthology. It's just
he
him
goes around
going
solving
around
cases.
solving cases. Yeah. It might be one of those situations where they rename the first one. I wouldn't be surprised. Like the Chronicles of Benoit Blanc. Yeah.
They might lose some audience by doing that.
I mean,
because
more creative.
People won't know.
It's the internet now, so it's like, I don't know.
People are stupid.
Yeah. A Knives Out film. I don't know.
A Knives Out.
So I wanted to look into more of like, does he actually hate James Bond, or does he just feel like he can't escape it? You know, like outside of the films, because he's only done 5 of them in like 11 years. So like, it's not like it's a huge time commitment. You know what I mean?
No, but it is one of the most like famous like characters in like maybe literature, but I want to say like one of the most famous fictional characters.
Absolutely, yeah,
of all time.
Seriously. So I mean, maybe it's that, because they're good movies, but it's not a huge avenue for an actor to like stretch their chops, right?
Yeah,
like it's a very kind of like dry personality. It's mostly action. It's mostly
it's just
the
a
story
suave
and the
action
plot.
role.
Yeah, but I mean, most of the fun in like a James Bond movie is the action and like the mystery plot. Like, you know what I'm saying?
The
like,
whole spy part of it.
The spy part of it, exactly. Yeah. So it's not a huge thing for like an actor to knock out of the park. And he's like an incredibly talented actor. He wants to do like these more kind of creative roles, and I don't know. I love him as James Bond, and I'm kind of sorry that he's not doing it anymore. I mean, 11 years is a great run.
Yeah.
For like any role. At the same time, they make these movies so slowly. Like they could have made twice as many in this amount of time.
That's true too.
Spectre came out 6 years ago. Like, it's taken 6 years for them to make a sequel to that.
Damn.
We need to actually watch those movies for you before the new one comes out.
Yeah, I feel like I am kind of missing out by not seeing like these iterations of them.
And that's the other thing, is that like they come out so spread out that like every time a new one comes out, I have to like rewatch the whole series
because
again.
it's been so long.
Because I don't remember them. Yeah, now it's been like 6 years since Spectre, so I'm like, oh fuck, I have to rewatch all of them again. I've seen Casino Royale a million times.
Maybe it's just the roles I've seen him in. I always feel like, and I kind of feel the same way about Ryan Gosling. I always feel like he's kind of playing the same person until I saw Knives Out and I saw that he could actually be a bit more
that's the thing,
animated.
I've mostly only ever seen him in 007, but when you look at some of these other roles, like, I mean, he's not that boxed in other than 007.
So maybe it is just like the fact that he's that role. I just think of like, oh, that's James Bond.
Yeah,
he's
it might just be
just James Bond.
That, like, yeah, Layer Cake was kind of similar, and I mean that's what led to this. I don't remember him in some of these earlier roles. And then like Logan Lucky's very different, and then Knives Out is very different.
It's like I loved him in Knives Out, and honestly, that's really the only real opinion that I could legitimately have on him because I haven't seen his James Bond movies.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of clips from them and like trailers and stuff, but that's it.
Yeah. Well, that's the other thing is like, I mean, maybe he is kind of boxed in because this movie, Cowboys and Aliens, I feel like they just told him to be James Bond.
Except he doesn't talk.
Right. I mean, James Bond's kind of quiet too. Like, he's just kind of like, he's quiet. He's doing his little trademark smirk. He's just trying to be like cool and like, sexy cowboy. And if James Bond were a cowboy, do that. Like, and I can see why he'd be frustrated that everyone else gets to act around him, and he has
to be the same person.
Yeah, he has absolutely nothing to do in this movie. So
he probably got paid the most to be in it, though.
I don't know. We got our next person here, but something I do like though is that he reprised the role of James Bond for a clip in the 2012 Olympics. Have you ever seen this in the London ones?
No.
So when London held the Olympics 8 years ago now, or I guess 9. For the opening ceremonies, so the Queen had to be there, right? Because London's fucking hosting the Olympics. The Queen of England needs to show up to a thing for once. And so they played a clip where James Bond, and this Daniel Craig playing James Bond, is taken into Buckingham Palace, and he serves as the Queen's personal like bodyguard. Because like obviously it's such a fun little bit,
right?
And he puts her on a helicopter. They jump off the helicopter and parachute into the stadium.
Oh,
obviously, it's not the Queen doing this stunt. Like, she just shows up in her seat.
Yeah.
But she filmed the thing with Daniel Craig. So, you know,
it's fun.
Unless if you get knighted, it's rare to meet the Queen under any circumstance.
Don't a lot of English actors get knighted anyway, though?
If they're doing a lot of, like, charity.
Okay.
They have to be doing a lot of good stuff, like in real life.
Because I know you got Patrick Stewart, you got Ian McKellen, you got
there's a bunch
Ewan
of them.
McGregor.
Yeah. There's a bunch of them, but he's not. So it is rare to like actually be taken to Buckingham Palace and meet the Queen. He just did it playing James Bond. So just as like the icon for like, English culture, I guess, even though it's just totally like American made movies, but
Right.
they're British books.
They're based on British books.
Exactly. Yeah. Ian Fleming. So overall, keep. I really like Daniel Craig, and I'm excited. As much as I love him as James Bond, I am excited for him to be done with it. To just him to have more roles.
I'm gonna say keep too. I'm excited for the Knives Out sequel.
I was about to say more Benoit Blanc movies because those are fucking awesome.
And he's like honestly a joy to watch in that movie.
Oh, he's so good.
His mannerisms are great.
It's like little Kentucky accent or whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever he's doing is so good. Harrison Ford, actor, pilot, who crashes sometimes, wears earrings, all around cool guy, always plays himself.
Yeah. So is he an actor or do they just put him on set and film him?
He might just be such a cool guy who oozes so much charisma that they just put him on set, tell him what to say, and it just works. And he's a multimillionaire now.
Yeah.
He's probably like half a billionaire. He started his career he's an actor. He wanted to act. And he had a bunch of small roles. Eventually, didn't like the roles he was in. He was very unhappy with them. And became a self-taught carpenter. Did you know this?
I did know that.
Because he just needed a job. So while being a carpenter, though, someone got him to audition for American Graffiti. Cars, it's the Fast and the Furious, but it's the 50s and it's George Lucas.
Isn't his role in that movie kind of small, though?
I think he's like the bully. I've only seen it once and I don't really remember much of it.
I saw it when I was a kid because I heard Han Solo was in it.
Wow, that's all it took.
That's all it took.
So that's how he meets George Lucas, and that pretty much sets off his career, is just meeting George Lucas, right?
Right.
That movie actually exploded George Lucas's career too. It allowed him to get Star Wars off the ground. So for Star Wars, and I'm sure you know this because you're a huge Star Wars nerd, but maybe a lot of people don't, George Lucas got him to read for Han Solo only to help with the auditions because he specifically did not want Harrison Ford to play Han Solo.
Right.
He wanted no-name actors, and Harrison Ford was already, at least for him, too famous off of American Graffiti. The one movie. But that movie took off, and it was a big summer fun hit, and
it was like a teen movie back in the 80s,
70s.
70s. Why did I say 80s?
Yeah, 70s. But it's set in the 50s, so there's a lot of nostalgia. That's kind of what it is.
And it was only like 20 years prior, so it's still a lot of the adults going to watch the movie. They remember that shit.
Yeah. He just kind of helped workshop the other actors or whatever, but he had read for Han Solo so much that even next to like Kurt Russell and other very now famous actors,
he just
reading for Han Solo
read it better.
He was just better at it. And George Lucas was like, well, shit, I guess you're the guy. Like, we have no one else that's better than you.
And Harrison Ford's just like,
so.
All right.
Yeah. So he just kind of like accidentally became one of the best characters ever.
Yeah.
So there's your answer. Who's cooler? Like, he wasn't even trying and he got Han Solo. If you go back, you can see this on YouTube. If you go back and you watch the audition tapes for the other guys, like Kurt Russell, I forget who were the other ones that did it that are now also super famous. Next to Han Solo, they look like idiots. Like,
this was also early in their careers too.
Sure, but like they're not selling it. Like Harrison Ford had a way of reading this crazy dialogue and making it seem real somehow.
Yeah.
It's his like
because Harrison Ford famously did not like the dialogue that George Lucas wrote.
Right. Well, that's the thing. Like he was also inserting like his human touch to it.
Yeah.
Because George Lucas not writing good dialogue. Harrison Ford called him out on set one time. He was just like, you can say, he admitted to it. He said, you can write this shit, George, but you can't say it.
Yeah.
And so
it was like too Shakespeare.
Yeah.
To where it seemed like unnatural. And there's still bits of that in old Star Wars movies where they say some lines and it's like,
it's
do
mostly
people talk like that?
It's mostly in the prequels because I think he had got so much pushback in the originals that like they found the lines eventually. And he ad-libbed a lot of them too.
Oh, most of Han Solo's lines are ad-libbed, I think.
Yeah. So he basically made it his own and made the most iconic character ever.
He made the character his own.
Yeah.
Harrison Ford is Han Solo.
Exactly. And that's the thing. Like I said, he mostly plays himself. What we were talking about in this movie, In the first act, it puts Harrison Ford as like the antagonist, and you're like, oh, is he going to be the villain of this movie? And then by the time the aliens show up, you realize, oh no, they're going to work together. And actually, this movie is going to focus a lot on proving that Han Solo's, oh my god, Harrison Ford's character is like a good guy.
Proving that Han Solo's not out for his own hide.
Right. So he's just a hero again. You know what I'm saying? It's just another like classic Harrison Ford role. But
yeah.
So Han Solo, obviously the coolest guy. Probably the next coolest guy after Han Solo is Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
So Indiana Jones, or specifically the title of the movie, was Raiders of the Lost Ark. That's one that we were talking about. Like after the first one, they go back and they rename it because they're like, oh, this is going to be a series. And Raiders of the Lost Ark is specific to just this story, right? So we have to change the name. So they changed it to Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Dr. Henry Jones? Was it Henry?
Yeah, well, what's the father's name?
Was it also Henry?
You might be right, actually. Yeah, Henry Jones.
Because he's junior, isn't he?
I think so. So Indiana Jones.
They're fun.
The first one's so good. I cannot get through the second one.
I don't have as big an issue with the second one as most people do.
It's bad. I mean, maybe we watch it together. That way you can force me through it. But third one's good too. And I need to rewatch because I haven't seen it in a long time.
Last Crusade's my favorite one.
Are you serious? Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I thought you said Crystal Skull. I was like, you're the only person I've ever met who said that.
Oh, no. Crystal Skull's
It's not that bad either.
It's not horrible like people were saying, but
it's not as good.
1 and 3 are better.
Exactly.
I do think Temple of Doom's the weakest one. It's also the one that's probably the least important to the whole franchise.
Well, that's why it's like a random prequel.
Yeah.
So they wouldn't have to like think too hard about the script. It's just a random adventure.
It's just one of his adventures.
Yeah.
With Short Round.
Yeah. So because of Indiana Jones, again, movies that George Lucas wrote and his best friend
Steven Spielberg.
Steven Spielberg made, he thought again that Harrison Ford was even more too famous for Han Solo, and he tried to kill Han Solo off in Empire Strikes Back.
Harrison Ford wanted to be killed off too.
And he asked for it.
Yeah.
And I think because of popular demand,
he was brought back.
But
because it was left in the air whether or not he'd
they had time to think about it for Return of the Jedi. If they were going to unfreeze him.
They had a few years to think about it.
Yeah. Are they going to unfreeze him, or is he going to like be dead, basically?
Yeah.
So I'm glad they brought him back, obviously.
Yeah. He's one of the best parts of Return of the Jedi, actually.
Maybe. Yeah.
All the shit he does on Endor is just great.
Mm-hmm.
But he's also great in The Force Awakens.
Yeah.
I was actually upset that they killed him in that.
Blade Runner. You ever seen Blade Runner?
Yes. That's a very good movie.
So fucking good.
Is he a replicant?
Ooh. We'll never know. I think they answer it in the next movie. I don't remember, though.
I haven't seen the second one.
It is so good. Blade Runner 2049. Well, let me get to it. So he's in E.T., by the way. I don't know if you know this. It's a cameo. Apocalypse Now.
The Vietnam movie?
Yeah.
That's a good movie.
So the Tom Clancy, Jack Ryan book, there are books, but the movies, Patriot Games and Clear and Present Danger.
Okay.
You ever seen those?
Yes.
I've seen them each once, and I do not remember any of it.
Does he play Jack Ryan?
He's Jack Ryan.
That's okay.
He's the more famous of the Jack Ryans.
Yeah, because the current Jack Ryan we have is Jim Halpert from The Office.
Yeah, because the first one was, what's his name? Alec Baldwin was the first Jack Ryan.
The Hunt for Red October?
Yeah, that one. And then Harrison Ford in Patriot Games, Clear and Present Danger. And then the fourth one was not that long ago. It was like Chris Pine, right?
Was it Chris Pine?
Yeah, Chris Pine plays Jack Ryan. In a
okay.
movie, in a more recent movie. There was another. Ben Affleck did it too. Sorry, Ben Affleck did the one where there's a nuke that's going to go off in the city.
Which one was that called?
I don't fucking know. Hold on.
I remember the Harrison Ford ones.
Okay, so Jack Ryan, that's a role where only like the coolest guys ever have played him.
Yeah.
Chris Pine.
That's also like the most famous Tom Clancy character.
Sum of All Fears is the Ben Affleck one. The movie's pretty good, if I remember. I mean, I was like in middle school when it came out. And then Chris Pine was in Jack Ryan's Shadow Recruit.
Okay.
Yeah, 2014 by Kenneth Branagh.
And John Krasinski is currently playing Jack Ryan
in the TV show. And
I guess the show's still going because it says 2018 and it just says dash.
Cool. Anyway, 6 Days, 7 Nights. You ever see that movie?
Yeah, that's probably one of his. That's probably one of his worst movies.
No, that movie's good. When'd you see it last? We saw it.
I was young.
We saw it like a year ago during lockdown.
I was young, so maybe I just didn't appreciate it.
I think it holds up. It's not like. I mean, it's not like the best movie ever. It's kind of a silly action rom-com. And I think it holds up. We had fun with it. You should give it a try. It's fun. It's a little Christmas movie.
Is it Christmas? Is it Christmas light?
It's very Christmas-like because they want to spend Christmas in like Fiji.
Okay.
So they go to Fiji. It's, oh, fuck, I forget her name. And the guy, David Schwimmer from Friends.
Ross.
Yeah, they're engaged. They go to Fiji. They get there on a plane, but then they got to get another plane to get to the island. So like
Okay.
they hire like a really bad pilot. Again, he's just playing himself, and it's Harrison Ford.
He's just playing himself. Bad pilot.
Yeah, and he's like a drunk. She has to go back to the mainland for like a work thing, so she hires Harrison Ford to take her back. They crash land on a deserted island, and they fall in love, and hilarity ensues.
And poor Ross Geller gets left at the altar again.
No, he has a whole fling with another chick too.
So he's a
whole
piece
thing.
of shit.
It's a whole thing. It's a really good movie.
I haven't seen it since I was a kid, so I remember nothing except for I was like, this isn't Han Solo.
It's a fun little rom-com. Anyway, K-19 Widowmaker, never seen that one.
Never seen it.
Air Force One, I've seen
That's
the movie
a badass movie.
1,000 times. It's such a badass movie. It is so ridiculous when you think about it, but it's one of those movies, don't think about it too much.
No.
You know? Harrison Ford plays the president. He's on Air Force One and he gets hijacked by terrorists and he fights them all off.
It's like a better version of those movies that came out like a few years ago where like the White House gets attacked and the
Oh yeah, like White House Down.
like White House Down. Then there was the Jamie Foxx one.
There's a bunch of them.
Wait, there's Olympus Has Fallen and White House Down.
Those are different.
They're different, but they're like the same.
They're the same. Right.
Yeah, I liked Olympus Has Fallen better.
I didn't see either of them.
That's the one with Gerard Butler.
I thought they looked dumb. Although Gerard, I can't say his name. Butler, he is suing Disney because they didn't pay him enough. It's because of ScarJo's thing. And now he's getting involved.
Oh,
But
so
those movies are old too.
he
They
should've-
were before streaming. They had nothing to do with streaming. It had to do with
What exactly
his
is suing
producer
him for
rights
then?
or something. Because he produced the first one, or he's in all of them, and I don't remember.
Maybe he didn't get paid for the producer part of the job.
I have no idea. Hollywood Homicide, and then he started reprising his roles. So Indiana Jones, Crystal Skull, Blade Runner 2049, Star Wars,
Yep.
2 Star Wars movies. Despite man, people think that he doesn't like Star Wars, but
He doesn't seem to have a problem going back for them.
well, I mean, he's very open about this. He gets paid a lot of money. It's a job.
So he's
again,
like, hell yeah. I'm
for
gonna
him,
do
it's a movie that he maybe sort of likes, but he doesn't really
He's
care
not
about
passionate
it.
about
Yeah,
it,
exactly.
yeah.
He's just not passionate about it. But he doesn't want to go to cons and pretend. Like when Tom Hiddleston dressed up as Loki to go to fucking.
Oh yeah, no,
Comic-Con.
Harrison Ford wouldn't do that.
Never in a million years. Ever.
I don't think he'd do that for any of his characters though.
No, he's just
I
not.
think he likes making movies. He doesn't like fans that
Yeah.
much. Yeah.
And I totally get it. If I was him, I would be doing the same thing. I'd be like, get out of my face. Don't ask me about the same role I've been doing for 50 years.
I'm not Han Solo. I'm
Like-
Harrison.
It's been almost 50 years of Han Solo. I get it. He's sick of it, you know? Call to the Wild. It's him and a dog. It looks sad, so I don't want to watch it.
It's a sad dog movie.
I don't like sad dog movies. Togo fucked me up. Okay, so Harrison Ford. Again, one of the coolest guys ever.
Oh, I love him.
Doesn't seem to be problematic in the slightest.
No.
He's just like an all-around cool dude.
Badass.
We were reading about his his charities and his environmentalism. Probably more that he's just a cool guy. He has a spider species named after him and an ant species named after him. So it doesn't get any cooler than that. Obviously a big old keep.
Hell yeah.
Cool. So that wraps up for Keep or Cancel. Final thoughts. What was this? Cowboys and Aliens. Berto, do you want to go first?
Yeah. I like this movie. I don't love it, but it is enjoyable. Again, the main character, not very well developed, but all the side characters are incredibly well developed,
Yeah.
which is a bit odd, but I'm here for it. Good action. The score is a bit forgettable.
You know what? When we were in the analysis, I was like, oh, let me talk about the music. I'm like, was there music in this movie?
There was,
That's
but it was
literally
very
what I
like
thought.
generic. Not a great thing. But the overall plot is fine enough,
In parts.
yeah. Like it's an enjoyable movie to watch like recreationally.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't a movie that you necessarily want to analyze like we are.
No, not necessarily. So, Phantom Zone?
No, not Phantom Zone.
Think about it for a second there.
No, I would not put this in the Phantom Zone because I do think it's just I like genre mishmashes too.
Mm-hmm.
So this is just it's fun in that
Yeah.
regard.
Like you said,
I
you
like
liked...
pineapple on pizza.
Okay, cool.
This is my pineapple on pizza.
Because you said you liked Pride and Prejudice and Zombies and
Yeah, and Abraham Lincoln Vampire.
Killer.
Like they're just fun.
Yeah, I like this movie, I think. There's a big asterisk on I think.
I think I like it.
So here's the thing. I feel like it's a real downward trajectory with these Orsi and Kurtzman movies where you finish the movie and you're like, wow, that was awesome. And then, like I said, 5 minutes later, you're like, but wait a second. And then, like, an hour later, you're like, just hold the fucking door for a second. What is this? Is this bad? Is it bad? And then, like, later, you're just, like, angry and angry. And I feel like I watched this movie today. It hasn't been a full day yet. Barely been a few hours. So I feel like I might have a whole different opinion tomorrow. I might actually hate this movie tomorrow. But as of this current moment, I think it's fine. And that's just kind of it. Like, I think it's pretty good. But like you said, you can't think about it too much. And that's kind of a shame because I don't feel like that's what movies are. Like, people say, like, oh, it's just a popcorn flick. Like, just turn your brain off and watch it. I'm like, that's a bad excuse. Like, you're making an excuse for the movie at that point. I think all movies should have some level of substance that you can kind of sit and think about. And, like, you know, they should hold your attention for more than the amount of time that you're watching it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but, I mean, there's also people that don't want to watch those type of movies.
Well, fuck them. Like, that's not... Okay, but the thing is, like, for those people, they might not see it like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can go watch Star Wars, and you and I would be thinking about it for the next, like, 3 days. We'll be replaying it in our heads, be like, oh, there's a thing I didn't even think about. That is part of, like, the archetype and the hero's journey and blah, blah, blah. Oh, and the music there was... And someone else would be like, that was fun. And then they fuck off and go home.
Or the people would be like, that was boring. Nothing happened.
Yeah, seriously. Fucking seriously. But you know what I'm saying? Like, so, like, maybe overthinking movies isn't for everybody. However, every movie should have something that you can at least, like, digest over time.
Something to think about.
Yeah, some substance.
Yeah.
And I think this movie is mostly wasted potential. Great idea on paper. Again, it's a couple different premises all put in one. It's like, what if aliens attacked when we weren't technologically ready for that invasion? And it's the 1800s and all we have is horses. And like, that's
a fun idea.
That is such a fun idea. You know, it's like Back to the Future 3 where it's like, all right, what if they go too far back into the past and now they're on horses
They
now?
can't get plutonium.
Yeah. It's a genre mashup, like we said. It's pineapple on pizza. It's an interesting experiment. I'm going to not Phantom Zone this movie, if only because it's interesting.
All
like,
right.
this movie is worth rewatching because it's like, here's an experiment. Let's test this out.
Yeah.
You know, let's see what you think. Let's talk about it. But not because I'm like, oh, I loved it so much I can just rewatch it again. But, like, again, like, the main character's substance, dialogue, it's non-existent. He has one good scene. There's a love plot that doesn't make any sense, and we have to question whether it even is a love plot. Like, there's a lot of little plotting things that, you know, they wrote in this that seems repetitive or nonsense or redundant. Like, I don't know. Right. It's borderline, but it's interesting.
It just barely makes it.
But yeah, if only because it's interesting.
I did forget to say when I was talking about it, though, that this movie's also just very well acted.
It's got a lot of good actors.
I have no complaints about any of the acting.
No. All right, so that's it for us, you guys. So, Berto, what movie are we doing next?
X-Men, the first one.
Is it 2000?
I think it's 90. Is it not 99?
No, it's 2000.
But yeah, X-Men 2000.
Yeah. So that's going to kick off like our X-Men series. And there's like 11 movies or something like that.
There might be more.
I think it's 11. So we're going to be doing, within the next 3 episodes, we'll do X-Men, X2, and X-Men 3, which is X-Men The Last Stand.
Yes.
And then at one point, we'll come back. We'll do like the 3 Wolverine movies. But then at a different time, we'll do like the prequel movies.
The prequel movies that become like the new timeline.
Sure. Yeah. So like First Class, Days of Future Past, Apocalypse. Dark Phoenix.
And then,
so that's a foursome.
And then New Mutants.
New Mutants is kind of on its own, so we're just going to do it on its own too.
True.
And then there's the 3 Wolverine movies, like I said. So we're not going to like do like 11 movies. Is it 11? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 11. Yeah, it's 11.
It's 11.
So we're not going to do 11 movies all like at once. But yeah, we're going to break them up probably like 3, 3.
Break them up
4,
and we'll do the same thing with like when we get to the Spider-Man movies.
Well, yeah, but those are also like different. They're not connected.
No.
You know,
they're like actually different series.
Exactly.
And we already Ninja Turtles because there's 2 more Ninja Turtles movies that are not connected to.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like,
the rest,
we have to make our way around. Like, I mean, we're gonna do some more Batman.
Yeah, I guess X-Men would be the longest like running series that we'd be doing then, right?
Yeah. Again, it's 11 movies, and we're not counting Deadpool because Deadpool. I mean, they're making a Deadpool 3.
Yeah.
So it's in the MCU
now somehow.
Multiverse, probably. I don't know. That's probably it, actually. Multiverse.
Yeah.
Cool. So that's available on Disney Plus, right?
The first one is.
Yep.
Yes.
I don't know if they all are. I don't think they
I think
all
there's a couple that are not yet.
I think like New Mutants is on HBO Max or something like that.
I think it is because I think that's where I watched it
I
one
think
day.
like it's streaming, whatever. I haven't seen that movie.
I saw it just the one time, but yeah.
I just said I was
save
like,
my opinion on it.
Yeah, I was like, oh, we're gonna watch it when we eventually get there, so that's when I'm gonna watch it. But
I have not seen Dark Phoenix at all.
me neither. Yeah. So that'll all be a surprise. I saw Apocalypse once, and I was like, I had so many questions.
I didn't like
So many questions. I'm like, none of this makes any
It's
sense.
like, how did it get so bad after Days of Future Past, which was considered so good?
Days of Future Past, I think, might be the best one out of all. I think it might
First
be the best
Class is
X-Men
pretty good
movie.
too.
Yeah, but I think Days of Future Past is better.
All right.
Whatever. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for listening. Thank you to that piano dude for a musical intro. Make sure you leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. That'd be great. All our episodes are on YouTube, and you can leave a rating and review there. Not a rating. You can leave... Not a review. You can just be nice and don't leave mean comments, actually. We've had a couple mean comments. But you can like and subscribe on YouTube. Like I said, it's just our podcasts are on there. No video element. If you do want a video element, we record all these episodes on Twitch live. So it's a recording process. It's not the finished, polished episode.
It's not us putting the show on for you guys. Well, we're putting a show on for you guys, but not the show.
So we actually just kind of like stopped and like chit chat for a minute about like what movie are we gonna do next. Like we weren't prepared for that. That's the kind of stuff that you get to see on Twitch. Yes. And if you're there on Twitch, you could probably help us decide what movie. You can make
suggestions,
next. Yeah. Because a lot of times we pick them at random.
Yeah, we're like, what the fuck is coming out and what's relevant to what we're watching.
Yeah. We'll probably put that on a Patreon tier as soon as we get some patrons.
Recommend the next movie? Yeah.
Yeah, like you get to vote on it. Anyway, so that's twitch.tv at Films from PZ.
Twitch.tv/Films from PZ.
That's it. Otherwise, you can find us on Instagram at Films from the Phantom Zone, and you can find us on Twitter at Films from PZ. So again, guys, we'll be back next time with X-Men
1.
Yeah. Original X-Men.
Yeah.
OG, original gangster X-Men. That'd be fun. I'm so excited for that. I guess bye? I feel like I'm forgetting something. I'm not forgetting anything. Bye!
See you guys.